action. It's kickoff time with Dirt and Sprague.
Snap back, four-man rush. Daniels fires over the middle. Caught! Crowder! Jamison Crowder! Down the middle, back in the end zone, and Washington takes the lead. More Jaden Daniels magic.
This is Wild Card Week with Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com. Injured? Don't trust just anyone to something so personal. Call George McCoy at Warren Allen. Online at WarrenAllen.com.
Wild Card Week with Dirt and Sprague on the Odyssey app and 1080.
There's a lot more under the hood for us.
The Fan.
All right, 6:02 in the Rose City. Time for Dirt and Sprague on Portland Sports Leader 1080. The Fan. Good morning. Happy Thursday, everybody.
What is happening?
Nice little drive in today. Ready to go.
Delightful route in. I'm getting on the brink of maybe not having to take 84 anymore, and I'm very excited about that.
Oh.
When I get to the point of not having to take highways into work every day.
Was 84 a disaster?
No, it's just I hate taking 84 every day.
Haven't been on it since we had that one day of being late.
84 and 205. Anytime I can avoid a highway, I can avoid a highway, and I take that chance. And if I got that in my life in the near future, I'm jumping at the opportunity.
Well, I mean, look, the truth is, largely the lump sum of us are awful drivers.
A lot of bad drivers out there.
I mean, I'm kind of one of the opposite. Like, people get really offended when you talk about their state, if you like attack it outside of like a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. When people are like, I think Oregonian drivers are the worst, I'm usually like, yeah.
Yeah, I deal with them every single day.
They're pretty terrible.
There was a guy in the right lane on 84 today going like 51 miles an hour, just riding his brakes the entire time with nobody in front of him.
There was a guy in the left lane
What
coming in today that was going 40 in a 55, and I'm like, what are you doing?
That maybe we should get out of the way. You know what causes accidents to happen is people like that being in a spot that they're not supposed to be in, and then people trying to get around that guy. That then leads to disasters around you.
Yeah, you take more time on the freeway. You're going to be on there longer. More
Yes.
likely going to get into an accident. You idiots.
You speed up a little bit, you get to your destination a little bit quicker.
Are you announcing that you're a different path?
We're in the process of moving, buddy. We're doing the moving process.
Oh, that's Schultze. He got that FU money.
You want to buy
Must
my
be
house?
nice.
You want to buy my house? Huh?
I like your house. Your house is very well put together. I don't want to live there.
You don't want to live over there? Yeah.
We're only 2 miles away. No,
Yeah, we're
it's
very
Like an
close
underhanded
together. Yeah, I
insult.
know.
God damn.
No, it's a 1 minute drive for me and my kids to go to their school.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be a little further out.
Yeah, you don't want that. If you're close to schools and all that, you want to stay close to it. So we're looking at getting out.
Getting out. Although I would say I have. Do you guys go through Redfin envy?
All the time.
Oh, yeah, Zillow envy.
All
or
the
Reddit
Yeah,
time.
where you
envy.
just like
Absolutely.
you open it and you're looking
Damn
and you're
right.
looking in areas that you don't live in and you're like prices and you're doing the mortgage calculator, which I've never really actually. How accurate is that mortgage calculator?
Doesn't feel very accurate to me.
Like, this is my down payment. What would my monthly be? Oh, it'd be this. Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
Well, there's so many different things that go into it because what are your property taxes? And I don't know how that actually equated into their mortgage calculator. Interest rates are different on a state-by-state basis.
Yeah, because Redfin is just set to, I think.
Like, this is what your mortgage would be. And it's like, well, that looks
Yeah.
great. But then if I'm living in the city of Portland and in Multnomah County, my property taxes are going to be through the
Way
absolute
through the roof.
And it's
through the
based-
roof. And so is that getting tied into my estimated mortgage there? Because that looks like a nice price.
Pretty sure it's based on a pretty high down payment, too. Like, it's the parameters that are set with,
Yeah.
like, you buying a house, putting down a couple $100,000, and a low mortgage rate, which doesn't exist.
Well, that's the
Yes.
beauty of the Redfin one. I don't actually dabble as much in Zillow. I know there's like differences for buyers and sellers between the apps. Redfin, what's beautiful about that is you change the down payment. So to show you what that percentage of the house is.
Yeah, you have a little
and-
slider.
Yeah, and then the calculator will change as you go. And you're so right. Not only do you got to calculate like taxes if you live in Multnomah.
Yeah, what about homeowners insurance? All that stuff get tied into your mortgage.
You then have to say, well, if I live in Multnomah County, my taxes are going up. And then, like, I got to think about tires more because they don't fix streets and there's potholes everywhere.
That definitely is a thing.
This is why renting is so much better. Can I just say, like, my wife and I still rent because of the things that you
You got to
all are
build
talking
equity,
about.
Schultz. You got to build equity, buddy.
That's not going to
It's all
really,
in land, man.
Yeah.
It's all in real
not gonna be
estate.
positive for me for 15 years. If I got in a little bit sooner, sooner if I were lucky enough to I'm buying a house at the time Sprague originally did.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Yeah.
would have been a decent price, affordable. But now it's all starting to jump the shark. And if I'm able to pay $2,000, $2,500 a month,
Right.
and not have to deal with any of the repairs, not have to deal with the taxes, that is a single
Very
cost
true.
for us. It is baked into everything, and we know that we're going to pay that and not a penny more each month. It's great.
I always love the idea that people who get rich on real estate, assuming they're not helped by old daddy. I always love how they try to act like they're so smart and they know how to give life advice. I quite literally bought a house for $200K, and 6 months later, unbeknownst to me, the entire country and market just exploded. And now it's like, oh my God, how did you get into real estate early? I saw it coming.
How'd you figure it out, man?
Yeah,
Look at you. You were ahead of Bitcoin too, probably, weren't you? How many
well,
Bitcoins you sitting on over there, buddy?
I famously
You
had a
rich over there?
Bitcoin, and I just bypassed it for cash. It was the dumbest thing maybe I've ever done.
Yeah,
Getting rich is either lucky or you inherit it.
You inherited it.
There is no, what a genius. You think Bezos opened a bookstore? That'll be the biggest store in America.
This is what it's going to turn into someday, man. I'm going to buy an NBA team down the road. This is going to be great. Yeah, look, I see the point on renting. My hard thing with renting. Now, you're right now. Now's a bad time to be a first-time home buyer because I don't know what
worst
kind of tax credits you get for a first-time home buyer, and interest rates are still incredibly high, and they're not coming down as quickly as some people thought they were. The hard thing that I had with renting, but all the arguments you make are valid, is I felt like I was flushing my money down the toilet every month.
But why do you feel that way if the payment monthly isn't? I hear what you're saying of owning.
Because it's I'm not going to be able so I'm paying my mortgage every month. Eventually, that's, not all of it goes to your principal and what you owe. A lot of it is interest and all that kind of stuff. So a small percentage of it goes to that. But when I sell my house, which is hopefully relatively soon, go buy my house, people, I'm gonna recoup money. I'm getting money back.
You're gonna get more money. Yes.
So it's instead of renting and then it's just you're paying every month. Now, valid argument. If something breaks, if you have a dishwasher or whatever, something goes down,
it ain't his responsibility.
It's not your responsibility. Somebody else, landlord's got to come in and help you out there. There's a lot of those kind of things that are beneficial. That was always the hard thing with me renting. I was just God, I feel like I'm not getting any of this money back in the long run.
Well, you're kind of right, but also I have a friend who's been renting where they live for a while now. And it was somebody that bought when the market was way more affordable for everybody. And so this person's renting out this, and they own 6 or 7 properties. They're renting this place, and it's a 3-2. It's 2,000 square feet. It's a good spot.
Yeah.
They're renting it out to my friend for $18 a month. So, I hear what you're saying, but $1,800 a month in this market,
not bad.
This economy,
not bad.
For 2 people making good money,
yeah,
it's hard to beat. You can't beat that with a house.
That's manageable. It's hard to get a mortgage that's lower than that.
No,
that's the thing. Unfortunately, with the equity trade-off is yes, you're building equity, but then every time a leaky roof happens or an air conditioning breaks or the sewer pump needs
there's
fixing,
random.
There goes your money.
Exactly,
there goes your money. Yep.
And you've
got
got to
have
have
it. You may flush on those occasions. You got to be ready to go.
Exactly, 5 to 10K ready on the finger. And then let me respond quickly to your point about not building equity and just kind of throwing your money down the tube. I've heard that argument, and I used to think that too, but somebody, I think it was some social media video a few years ago that just kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, no, that makes sense. No, it's a really simple point.
Just the fact that you said social media, I'm thinking, what video? What video?
No, nothing crazy. Just guys, when you either buy a house or are renting a house, you are paying for a home. You're paying for an abode, right? Mm-hmm. And regardless of if it is equity building or not, you have that respite. You have that safe space for you and your family. And looking at it as equity building, I think, is not really the right thing to look at it as. That's kind of what the banks want you to look at it as. Sorry, guys, owning a home, remember, this was a dream that was sold to us by the banks. The white picket fence American dream was to get us all to buy mortgages back in the day. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to buy a house. It's just a little too expensive nowadays, unfortunately, for some first-timers, and renting is a lot more cost-effective than owning. So that's my argument.
Yeah, the tough part for now, like in the economy now, is that so many people have a hard time buying a house because, one, remember who was the guy that ran for mayor in like New York years ago, and his whole platform was the rent is too damn high? Do you remember that guy?
I don't remember his name.
Go YouTube that guy. He
Harold
was a
Kane,
hilarious, a hilarious mayoral candidate, and it's just his whole thing. Like every question was like, the rent's too damn high. What's wrong with this? The
Herman
rent's
Cain, that was his name.
No, Herman Cain's different. Herman Cain was 999, and I think Herman Cain died. I think
He
Herman
did. He
yeah.
also ran for president years ago.
Yes, this is a different guy. He was black too, but not Herman Cain. I definitely will remember that. But he wore like leather gloves. He was a character, but his whole thing was the rent's too damn high.
He's not wrong, though.
No, but the whole point is that when rent is so damn high that people can't save enough money to have a down payment on a house to make a mortgage affordable. And so it's this vicious cycle that always feeds itself, that you can never get ahead, you can never save as much. I always think back whenever I hear stories of like generations that are older than us, of how much money they spent to buy houses. Now, interest rates were higher. Like I think when my parents bought their house,
20%.
yeah, my parents' interest rate in the early 80s were like 13, 14, 15%.
It was also a $150,000 house.
The house was like $40,000 or $30,000, and it's like, all right, well, it's not
It's
a
a
bad
bit insulting, actually.
a little bit easier to get ahead and then build that equity when, yes, the interest rate's a little bit higher, but the house is $35,000, and then in 20 years that house is going to be worth, $800K.
How'd you get that classic car from your grandpa that's in perfect condition and worth $110? Oh, he bought it for $2,100 back in the day.
That's how it works.
Cool. Must be nice.
Must be nice.
I am. I'm happy for you. Congratulations on moving. Moving is exciting.
We'll wait and see. Wait and see how long it takes to sell my house first.
Well,
before
sure.
the congratulations come in.
Well, no, I just more the idea of moving.
Yeah.
I get excited about moving.
Do you really?
It's
You
kinda
moved
like
a lot though in your life. How many times did you? Can you count how many times you've moved?
I counted it, and the last time I counted, I was at 31.
31 times.
Yeah.
That's a lot of moving.
Wow.
Well, some of those moves weren't voluntary.
No, it just middle of the night. Here we go. We're changing.
We can't get
locations.
in the house.
Yeah.
Where do we go?
We got to find somewhere else now.
They changed the locks.
Oh, that's not good. You never want that to happen.
Hey, what does eviction mean?
It's a word of the day. You learn something new.
Hey, little brother, can you spell foreclosure? No, but
E is for eviction.
I have moved a lot, but I am in this weird cycle of I'm looking at areas that I want to live just because I like them. And like I'm a big believer in living in areas where you can walk to things.
That's my whole reason for moving.
It is a
Especially
partial
with a kid now.
It's an underrated point of why so many people in other countries live way longer than us. We just get our fat asses in cars and we drive around and I gotta drive somewhere else, and you barely walk. You did it, you go home, you don't do anything. These people in other countries are walking to every little markets, little shopping centers.
Yeah, go get your fresh produce, get your groceries, walk home.
The unfortunate thing is my kids are now in school. They've established friendships.
Yeah.
I'm losing this argument. I have no chance of winning it. I want to move.
You got about 10 more years, right? How long until the youngest is graduated from high school?
I don't want to wait.
You don't want to wait that long.
And also, here's a hot take. Like, some of the areas in Portland people are weary of living in. Totally get it. I think a little bit more of that is more boogeyman than reality, personally. But I look at the school grades, and then I comp into my kids' school grades out in the burbs, and I'm like, that school is testing out better. That school probably doesn't have a great reputation, but it actually is statistically better than the school my kids are at.
Wouldn't think that on paper, but then you look at the numbers, and it's actually there.
So I'm like, they'd have better schools. I get what kind of I want.
We can walk to
cool
coffee shops every Saturday.
Oh, my God. Every Saturday. Probably every day.
There's a bar on the corner for Friday nights.
I want to be a norm at a coffee house.
Yeah.
Hey, Sprague!
Brandon, good morning.
Cold foam. Cold brew.
Yeah, we had that realization when the little guy was born, because I'm a recluse. I don't do anything. I get home. I don't like leaving the house. I put on like a pair of basketball shorts and a cutoff T-shirt, and I'm home for the day. I'm not going anywhere. But that obviously changes when you have kids, and it's like, all right, now he's not quite there yet, but at the point where he's able to walk, it's like, dude, I want to be able to take him to a park. I want the school to be within walking distance, all those kind of things. And then on top of it, at our current house, we're out in the boonies, but we're in Multnomah County, so I'm paying Multnomah County taxes.
You're in a weird spot where the line
It's
just
a weird carve-out that
yeah.
is technically still Portland, but if I told you where I live, you'd be like, there's no chance that's
not
Portland.
yeah.
But it's Portland technically. Trust me, my tax bill comes in every year. And I thought, why am I paying Multnomah County taxes and not getting any of the like Walkability Portland benefit?
You get none of it.
This makes no sense to me. So if I'm going to pay high taxes, I might as well live in a walkable neighborhood, and we'll see if we can find our way there.
The most Portland thing next to Dirt's house. He lives next to a farm.
I got cows and
He
horses.
He lives in a neighborhood of old people.
A lot of
and,
olds in my neighborhood. Yeah.
kind of country city folk. The most Portland possible thing about Dirt's house currently is there's a space age.
There is a space age.
There's a space
yeah.
age gas station.
There is.
It's just
Damn
like,
right there is. Gets
all
its
right.
windows broken once every other month. It's like, all right, that's Portland, baby.
You live
That's
in
my
like
kind of Portland.
Sandy or boring? Where the hell are you?
I mean, you're not far off. It's out in that neck of the woods, man.
It's not that deep.
Takes
was
about
like,
2
that's
hours to
far.
get into work every day. I take a horse and buggy. It takes forever.
He's bordering on Clackamas, Damascus, if we're just being out front with
I
it.
gotcha. Yeah.
I could throw a rock to another county, and I'm like, can we just carve this out and save me $8,000 a year in property taxes?
Well,
That'd
but
be
now you want to
delightful.
move to the more.
I know,
higher
no,
property
moving in. I know. What do you want from me here?
tax. All right. Well,
that was a very philosophical conversation to open the show today.
That was.
fundamental.
Look at us.
There's going to be beliefs both sides. I think of renting versus owning.
Absolutely.
And I think what we all agree on is it's ridiculous to try
Everything's
to buy.
too expensive. How about that? Let's lower prices.
Like Dern ain't buying unless he sells a house.
Yeah.
Exactly.
we got to
You've
sell
already-
first. We got
you've already got
step
the equity.
one. We
Yeah.
got to take care of, and then we'll try and get to step two.
Minimum 70 grand to walk away with, and it's all going to something. Not pocketing any of that.
No, probably not.
We got a lot to get to today. Nick Costos of You Better You Bet is going to join us for the Daily Ticker at 7:30. He's a rabid Giants fan. Let's bring something back today with him. Maybe you could start the interview with this. Maybe we should bring this back and throw it at him. What cereal would the New York Giants be to him?
That's a good question.
I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that conversation.
the listeners were digging it yesterday.
Well, I really started thinking on the way home about cereals and what cereals I haven't had in a long time. You know which one we omitted?
who do we omit?
The Reese's Puff cereal.
Reese's Puffs. Solid.
Underrated goat.
Reese's Puffs is a solid
Yeah.
cereal.
Oreo
Yes.
O's made it in, right?
No, we
No.
didn't bring up
What
the
the
Oreos.
hell?
No,
They're
we didn't.
back in America as of like 2019.
We lost them?
for like 15 years. Yes.
What?
They
Why?
because the license was
We're the
like
home of the Oreo.
only available in South Korea, so you could only get Oreo O's in one country.
What?
It was so odd, but now they're back.
Only in
The-
South Korea, huh? Look at
So
us.
tasty.
Debatably, the most dangerous thing you could eat is a thin Oreo because you don't just eat one.
No.
You want to eat 20.
You're eating 15 of
They're
them.
fun-sized candy bars. You're just eating them all, and you're like, I'm okay.
Pop, 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 pop. And you're like, wait a minute, that was old sleeve. What the hell happened there?
So Costos is going to join us. We got a loaded show, a lot to get to. Dirt and Sprague, let's get it going on the Fan.
a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
Absolute heartbreaking, stunning images out of Southern California yesterday as the fires roared on. Eventually, Hollywood got hit with an ember.
I got sucked into that last night.
I mean, I don't know how you don't. Clips everywhere. Anderson Cooper was live on the ground, boots on the ground. Imagine being Anderson Cooper. You can hate Anderson Cooper all you want. You think he's some woke lib. Imagine being like that rich just from your family side and also what you've done professionally. And you go,
a lot of money.
I want to be on the ground in the middle of that inferno.
Send me into that fire.
That dude's crazy.
There was a guy on ABC, David Muir, I think is his name. I think
Yes.
he's like the lead NBC or ABC anchor or whatever. And people caught him. He was wearing like a yellow firefighter kind of jacket to report the news live.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned around to point at some of the burning buildings, which is like, hey, this is, great coverage. We now see that it's on fire. And people caught that he had clothespins. It's like snapping together in the back of his jacket to make sure it was form-fitting.
Looking all sexy.
It's like, what are we doing here, man? You're reporting the news.
Gotta have
like,
a fitted jacket.
Look, I get it. Your hair is slicked back. You look good. You're
Sure.
a handsome man. What are we doing here?
It's devastating. I saw a lady get interviewed. Her parents had to abandon their house they lived in for 70-plus years. They're 90 years old.
Terrible.
And the lady basically tells the newscaster their insurance company just canceled their fire insurance.
That's been going on a lot in California over the last year.
That's what James Woods said. Like everybody in his neighborhood 4 months ago, him included, had their fire insurance canceled. It's by the company. It's crazy that that's legal.
Yeah, I'd fire a massive lawsuit off. And I hope a lot of those people do. It's
step
ridiculous.
number one.
So we're thinking about, I didn't have very much impacted, but I'm like, people I went to college with, they live in the Hollywood area, just outside of the Palisades. And so I saw a lot of them posting yesterday because that fire ended up spreading into different spots. It's just really sad to see devastation like that. So I don't know. I was watching it a lot yesterday outside of the NBA coverage, seeing a lot of clips, and it's just awful.
It's a sad reminder of one of the things that we have to go through a lot in every summer here in Oregon. It's just kind of one of our realities on the West Coast. You're going to have a lot of fires, and when one hits a city like that, it seems very, very rare. Like the only other one that popped out in my mind was the one that happened in Hawaii a couple of years ago.
Oh, man.
Because it just devastated an entire town. For the most part up here, and for the most part, usually in California, when you get these fires, it's out in a hilly, hikey.
You just get the smoke.
You get the
if there's
smoke. You
anything.
got you get a little bit of ash and that kind of stuff. And then there are obviously people that live in those areas that their stuff is destroyed. But when you see an entire city wiped out, just wiped off the map, it's bananas, man.
Did you watch the Cavs Thunder?
I watched the Cavs Thunder.
You did?
I did watch the Cavs Thunder.
We had a listener that was like, I'm not watching that. I'm going to watch the replay of the Tiger Golf League. And I certainly understand the thought, but I responded with, I promise you, these two teams.
They're good teams.
Perception of the league versus what these two teams are not the same.
Yeah.
And I even gave him some evidence. Did you know statistically, this one's for people like you, Schultze, going into last night, the Cleveland Cavaliers are averaging 43s a game. Let's comp that to the 2001-2002 Lakers, who won the NBA championship, the best team in basketball.
Dominant team.
They shot 15 a game. Care to guess the field goal percentage? There's too many threes. Nobody wants to watch bricks. Cavs are shooting 50% on the year. That Laker team, 46%. It is more skilled than it's ever been in the league. And I was just happy for it because last night's Thunder Cavs game was effing awesome.
It was the exact game that the NBA needed. Like just desperately needed. And even who's the Cavs coach?
Atkinson.
Atkinson,
During the interview,
yes.
Yeah.
They interviewed him, was it after the third quarter or
Yes.
whatever, and they're like, blah, 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 how's the game going? He was like, man, this is great. Two teams playing hard, putting on a good performance, playing the right way,
He
moving,
said, I wish I could
passing.
watch.
I just want to be a fan and watch this game. And it was, look, I went in, I missed, I think, most of the first quarter, and I'm like, that's right, Cavs and Thunder. I got to turn this thing on, and I was glued to it the rest of the night, man. There's been so much negativity around the league, some of it fair, some of it completely unfair.
Yeah.
That it's just nice when you get these little moments of like, hey, this can still be a good product. This can still be an entertaining thing on your television. And especially now that we're reaching that point in the calendar. Like, I don't know what's going on in the NBA tonight. You're not going to get my eyeballs. There's a playoff game tonight. There's a playoff game tomorrow. There's playoff games this weekend. That ain't going to happen. But on a random Wednesday night when there's nothing else going, like, what else am I going to watch? I can't watch Blazer games anymore on YouTube TV. So I'm not going anywhere near that. I'm not pulling up my antenna again.
Your Blazers are on tonight.
I'm not doing
back.
No, they're not getting my eyeballs tonight. Sorry, Blazers, on an antenna, especially. You kidding me? There's a playoff game on, so I don't even know they're playing. This was one that I was glued to. It was a great game and a great night for the NBA.
Yeah, I'm looking through. You got T-Wolves, Magic. You got Rockets, Grizzlies. Those are two young teams that kind of hate everybody, so they'll be playing each other. Hawks, Suns. I don't know if that does anything. Hornets, Lakers.
No.
So, look, I know most nights people are going to skip it, especially when the football's there.
The football's back tonight. The football's going to take the precedent.
100% get it. But, my overall point is the top teams in that league, they give a damn. They're young. They're hungry teams. They're teams that haven't won championships. You get the Thunder. I know the Cavs won it with LeBron, but, this version of the Cavs, people don't follow it. Mobley's been awesome. Garland, Mitchell have figured out, hey, he needs to kind of be the center point while we still go get our buckets. They've got a bunch of good role guys. Jarrett Allen is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma City, you got SGA, and you got, Chet is out, and they were
great.
on a massive winning streak last night. Last night, for the first time in NBA history, it was the first time in league history that a team with a 15-game win streak and a team with a 10-game win streak played each other in the regular season. And the final was 122-129. It was within 4 points.
It was closer than that throughout.
Basically most of the game.
Yeah.
So that was a great basketball game. You're either in or you're out. I totally get people with football season, college winding down, and the NFL getting into the playoffs. Most people are out. But when you get those games on non-football nights...
And the NBA actually puts them on national television so I can watch them and it's not a league pass game.
And you tell me you're a sports fan, not a football fan, that's what it's for. And then football's over. And you've got great, fun storylines. There's 6 teams that haven't won titles, that are built at a way, including the Celtics have won, but they can repeat. And then you've got all these other teams that are kind of in it and vying for that crown to either dethrone the Celtics or get out of the West, whatever it may be. And so, that's what's exciting about the league right now. We haven't had back-to-back champs in, 5 years?
It's been a long time.
6 years?
It's been a long time.
So you're not having this dynasty run of a team that you hate, or you kind of got competition everywhere, and that's what's great about the top of the league.
It's a really good spot for the league to be in. 2 follow-ups for me. I got to ask Basketball Brandon a question, but first I want to give you a thought and a takeaway. Now, this has lingered for me for a while. He's an incredible player. Part of it might have been his commercial with Chet last year. I'm not a huge SGA guy. I don't know what it is about him. I don't know if it's the shoving off, the way he creates separation. There's just a little bit too much Harden in him for me that sometimes when I watch him, not the biggest fan. There's a lot of other young guys that I maybe put a little bit higher on him in terms of a watchability pedestal. Not to take away from his talent. He's an incredible player. I totally get that. There's just a lot of foul seeking, a lot of pushing off, a lot of finding angles, and I get it. That's part of the game, and you got to take advantage of it, and Harden's done it for years, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer because of it. The basketball question I would have out of it is where do we put the legitimate chances that the Cavs win an NBA title? Because they're a fascinating team to me. It's the first time I've seen a Cavs game all year. I couldn't name you 3 other guys in the starting lineup. Who the hell is Dean Wade? Dean Wade? Where the hell did he come from?
He's the white guy. They've had him for a couple years, and it always
never heard of that guy in my life
because they refer to him as D Wade.
D Wade. I'm who's this D Wade? What? Who's this guy?
But he's white, and he's not Dwayne Wade from the
6'9", knocking down threes. I've never heard of this guy in my entire life.
Yeah,
but we usually know
their starting lineup.
I know most of
those
guys.
Dean Wade.
D Wade was the one that threw me off a little bit last night. I'm who the hell is this
George
guy?
Niang.
I've heard the name before. Okoro, I know, coming off the bench. Ty Jerome was another guy that where the hell he come from? Never heard of that guy.
Virginia.
Damn.
You don't remember he won the national championship?
No,
I
don't remember.
Point guard.
What did they score? 7 points in that game? They win 7-5 in the national title game? No, I don't remember the Virginia starting lineup from that Bennett
Max
national.
Strus? You don't remember Max Strus?
I remember Max Strus from his great finals run a couple of years ago in Miami.
A ton of threes.
But that's the one thing that I look at teams like this in the NBA, and I think it would be an awesome story for Cleveland to win. There's always that little bit of doubt that creeps in when you see a team without 2 bona fide supers. That's usually what it takes to win in the NBA. They're a great collection of talent. Unbelievable run. I'm just curious how far they're actually going to go.
I will answer that on the other side. I also want to get to one local basketball thing. The Blazers played yesterday. We'll dive all the way into college football. Don't worry. We will get to the playoff. I want to talk about something that we mentioned at the start of this segment at 6:45. We have a lot to get into. I'm going to answer your question on the other side and address the local thing that happened yesterday. So we'll get to that next, but first, Schulte with a sports update.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Vulcan Design and Construction. Check out their award-winning outdoor living designs or schedule your free design consultation at vulcandc.com. First on the Fan, the Blazers smacking the Pelicans for their 13th win of the season last night. 119-100 the final. Denny Avdia leading the way with 26 points, while Shaedon Sharpe adding 21. Right back at it tonight against the Mavericks in Dallas as a 7.5-point underdog. Tip-off at 5:30. And some bad news in college football for Oregon as both Ducks edge rusher Jordan Birch and left offensive tackle Josh Connerly declaring for the NFL draft. But you got the college football playoff semifinals going on tonight with the Orange Bowl between Penn State and Notre Dame. Fighting Irish are 1.5-point favorites. Kickoff set for 4:30 on ESPN. On the college hardwood, the 15th ranked Oregon Ducks taking on Ohio State in Columbus tonight. The Buckeyes a 3.5-point favorite. Coverage getting going at 2:30 right here on the Fan. Tip-off at 3 p.m. on Big Ten Network. And the Portland Pilots hitting the road, taking on the University of San Francisco tonight. They're a 20.5-point underdog in that one. Coverage gets going over on 910 ESPN Portland at 6:30. Tip-off at 7 p.m. on ESPN+. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Jump back to earlier parts of your favorite fan shows on the Odyssey app. This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
on 1080 The Fan.
Get to the Blazers in a second here. I want to talk about something happening with the fires in Los Angeles. Obviously, there are far more important things about that, so don't take this kind of tease, as they'd say in the biz, offensively, but how it impacts the sports world.
Yeah, it might.
Well, yeah, it's trending that way for sure.
Some of them have already been. I think they canceled a Kings game the other night for the NHL. So some of them have already been affected.
Already been impacted by it. We'll get to that, and then we'll dive into the college football playoff at the top of the hour. The Cavs beat the Thunder in the NBA last night. I really genuinely, I'm an NBA guy. I do hope people just off night of sports, it's on ESPN. You get home after work, it's on second half.
Yeah.
I hope people watched. I don't know who did. I don't know who didn't. You asked before the break, are the Cavs legit? And I think you can look at record and the way they've played, and you can kind of laugh at it, but I also see your point, right? Last night was your first game watching the Cavs, and I understand that there's these teams in sports in any league that you're like, I haven't watched, but are they really going to win?
The Jazz were this couple. What year was it that Utah had a random year
with Mitchell and Gobert?
Yeah, and they were like the number one seed, and everybody looked at them like, are they really going to do anything in the playoffs? And then they didn't do anything in the playoffs.
They lost in the first round?
It was
Or
a
the
quick.
second
It was
round.
a quick
It was a
exit.
quick-
They're like, that's why we didn't buy you all season long.
Look, I don't know if they'll beat the Celtics in the East. I tend to kind of just lean on the Celtics and say when it's, nut crunch time in a game 6 or 7.
Yeah, man for man, better roster up and down.
Yeah.
Most people would
Drew
argue.
Holiday is their 4th best player on any given night. That must be really nice to have.
Yes.
And if they're healthy, I don't think I'm going to pick anybody to beat them. The Knicks have nights where I'm like, damn. They have other nights where I'm like, what happened there?
Yeah.
Milwaukee is in the 5 seed, but do you want to play Dame and Giannis?
No, I do not.
Middleton's coming off the bench for them.
Yeah, they moved him to the bench.
And so I just, Milwaukee is looming there. And the Magic have had actually a really good run despite having Paolo Banchero, Dirt, 5 games this year. He's coming back. He's played 5 games this year.
Do they need an additional guard? Is that a potential? Do they need a guy? Maybe by the last name of Simon. Just floating it out there.
That might be a guy that might be on the radar. Who knows? I don't know if I can, concrete tell you yes or no. What I would say is they play a brand of basketball that works in the postseason. They've got elite guard play. And what Evan Mobley has done and taken a step this year, paired with what Jared Allen does down low, you may not buy the two bigs thing. It's 32-4.
That's an incredible record.
And the underrated part of that team, they upgraded in coach. Kenny Atkinson, to me, has been a great coach since Brooklyn. They ran him out for Steve Nash. He became an assistant. He kind of learned to be, a normal, nice person. You saw it in the interview last night. Kenny Atkinson wasn't doing that 6 years ago.
No.
So, yeah, I buy it. I don't know if they will, but you cannot be 32-4 and not be in the conversation. But I think a lot of people are going to have that takeaway about the Cavs.
The funny thing about it is we hear a lot, and I do this too, I'm just as guilty as anybody, where we pinpoint to the NBA one of the issues that they have is teams and players not caring as much about the regular season.
Yes.
Load managing, taking nights off, getting blown out. There was the Denver game earlier this year in L.A. where Jamal Murray after the game was like, our guys went out. We got a lot of guys that live in L.A., and then they got blown out by the Lakers or Clippers. I can't remember who it was. You get a lot of that, and we like to pinpoint those as this is why the NBA is not blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. When on the other side of it, there are teams like this. I think one of the reasons Cleveland has the record that they have is that they're out to prove something, and they play their ass off every single night. And so we always love pointing to the negative side of it and the teams that love taking nights off. The big reason why Cleveland has a better record than Boston is because they're trying to prove that they belong in that same category, and they play their ass off every single night. You don't get that from every team, and it's nice to see occasionally.
And that's what last night was. It's two teams that give a damn and want to be the best.
Yes.
And I will watch that all day, every day. And by the way, tonight you've got, if you want like a split screen or you want to put something on the iPad or whatever, you got the 2 versus the 3 in the West.
Look at you.
Two young teams.
Look at you.
They got chips on the shoulder. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there. Just saying. Penn State, Notre Dame could get real boring tonight.
It could.
Could be 9-6 in the fourth quarter.
Very well could.
Grizzlies, Rockets might be something worth watching. Quickly, and then we'll pivot out a little bit.
Yeah.
Our beloved Blazers, R.I.P. 2-game run on YouTube TV.
Remember you.
And for some reason, team didn't announce this. Station didn't announce this. Nobody seems to know how or why. The Blazer Vision channel, KUNP, no longer on YouTube TV. So if you didn't have an antenna last night, they housed the Pelicans, who are the worst team in the NBA.
Pelicans are so bad.
But I thought CJ was
terrible.
Amazing and he could lead a team.
Yeah.
Where's your CJ friend at? I want you
I don't know.
actually
You
to
want me to
text
text him right now? Yeah, I'll send him a text right now.
2 great assists last night.
Yeah.
Way to go, CJ.
Is that what he had last night?
Way
Yeah.
to share the basketball.
Yeah, he can shoot a lot. That's about it. That's
Yeah.
what
Minus
CJ can
17
do.
in 27 minutes. That's impressive.
I haven't been a big Ayton guy, mainly because I want the Klinger to get the minutes. He swatted the living hell out of CJ, and
He
I
did.
stood up like, yeah, get that weak ass out of here.
You guys know what last night's win means for the Blazers, too, don't you?
What does it mean?
Less ping pong balls.
Not only that, but they are now closer to the play-in
Yeah,
than
I
they
know.
are the
They're creeping
bottom
into
of
the
the
play-in
Western
dirt.
Conference. It is freaking
Are they?
sad.
Can I ask you guys this?
They are 5 games away from the play-in, 6 games away from the bottom of the Western
Danny
Conference.
LaRoe and Nate Duncan do a Substack-type podcast. You have to subscribe to listen to it. They did their worst general managers. They named Joe Cronin as the worst or the third worst, depending on the two of them.
He's in the bottom 3.
And they basically highlight how he just didn't trade the guys to let the young guys get the minutes.
It's funny. Who's been arguing that for months? Who doesn't know anything about the NBA?
Those are
Hands
2
raised.
really smart dudes, too. So
Yeah.
you can believe it, you don't have to believe it, whatever. Anyways, that's what they said. There's a sneaky good point by one of them. I saw this article on Blazers Edge. Is there an idea that behind the scenes, the Vulcans were like, you can't be dog ass? And, like, I hear that they want to trade their guys, but they're not. Are we going to be a playing team?
I mean, for the love of God, please no. Please, for the love of God, don't let that happen.
Now, Meringue told me the other day off the air, he was like, they're going to probably sit him after the deadline. And I was like, all right.
We're going to start faking injuries in the back half of the year.
Killer hangnail, dude.
Yeah.
But if they don't, that team, they have enough veteran guys. It's like, hey, they're the 10 seed.
You know
Well, this
Chauncey's
is-
trying.
I mean, of course he is,
Oh,
because
yeah,
he wants to save his job and he wants to get another head coaching job in the NBA. To be fair, I guess on his part, is why it would never made sense to bring him back. Like, I understand where he's coming
Trying
from.
for Chauncey, by the way, ain't an X's and O's thing. It's just not playing young guys.
Yes, I am keeping my veterans in the starting lineup, and they're going to play 40 minutes unless we're winning or getting blown out. It's just funny. I had a thought yesterday seeing the final score because I tried to watch the game on YouTube TV, no longer available. My antenna was in one room and one room only. I'm not going to go just sit in that room to watch a Blazer Pelican game at 5 o'clock on. It's just not happening.
Nice little game from Shaden.
Nice little game from Shaden.
Half,
The numbers looked awesome. Sounded like they killed one of the worst teams in the NBA. That's awesome. Scoot struggled again. I think I'm breaking down all the highlights perfectly.
Scoot was okay. He didn't shoot well from the perimeter, but he was all right. He was better than the last game.
But I remember we used to do the YouTube overtimes early last year and into the spring and summer as everything kind of winded down. And we had one with Ben Golliver, good friend of the show for a long time, but we can't get him on live because he's not a morning person. And I remember asking him on that, like, hey, Ben, and he had just went on a rant about how he just had watched Cooper Flag and how your whole motto is going to be
for the
America Hoops or Nike Hoop Summit.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, this is going to be your whole thing. You're going to want to tank for Cooper Flag. He's going to be the best player, and he's going to, a franchise changer and all that. And I remember asking him, like, are we going to be bad enough to be even in that conversation? And he almost laughed at me. Like, oh, yeah, the Blazers will be bad enough. But this was my biggest fear, is that you have veterans on this team that are going to lift you up a certain percentage. And I know some fans are tired of that conversation, but for me, it's not going to go away because that's the whole point of being in the position that you're in, that I almost feel like when you're in that, whether it be the play-in spot or just outside the play-in spot, that's literally the worst spot to be in the NBA. You're not bad enough to draft or have a easy opportunity to get a game changer in the top 5, and you're not good enough to make any sort of serious noise in the playoffs, which this organization clearly isn't. It's similar to where the Seahawks were this year, which also, hey, Vulcan thing. The Seahawks not good enough to make the playoffs, clearly not good enough to make any noise if they made it and beat the Rams or didn't lose to the Giants, but they're drafting 18th in the first round. So you don't get a top 10 pick, you don't get a top 12 pick. You're drafting almost at 20, and you're not a playoff team. You're in no man's land as an organization. And whenever we win games like this and I hear these kind of conversations, I agree completely with the sentiment. Joe Cronin has done a lot of really good things, man. Denny Avdia on the run he's been on for the last 2 months has been awesome.
It's interesting. They highlighted that trade and said he overpaid.
Which,
they're like, he's a high-level role guy, but...
I mean, sure, but you gave up Malcolm Brogdon in what, the 18th pick in the draft or whatever it was?
Also a future first, because we had 3 in 2029.
Okay,
and
so
we
you
had
gave up
3
one of those down the road.
I think it was a Bucks pick.
Okay, so you gave up another future first.
It was one of 3.
I think the hope is by 2029 you're not still in tank mode, and this could be a piece that we need. Like, he's been awesome for the last month. He's been playing incredible. Kamara is unbelievable defensive. He's the best defender we've had.
It was great to get him in that trade.
God knows how long we've had him forever. Can we send Ayton back and just keep Kamara? Can we do a take back on the other part of it? Like, he's got a lot of little wins, but it's just the lingering frustration that exists on nights like where Schulte brings up they're closer to the play-in.
By the way, don't look now. The Oklahoma City Thunder have the 76ers pick on Tankathon. That's the 8th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And it has us at 7. Well, we're 5 games out of the play-in, by the way. I just looked at the standings, so I was curious if it was closer than I thought. We're still 5 games out.
I just said that.
Oh, did you say 5?
I said 5 games, 6
sorry.
from the bottom of the Western Conference.
My apologies.
You're fine.
I heard you say close to the play-in, and I was like, oh, I wonder how. So
we're also 5 games out from being one of the 5 worst teams in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect them to be the worst team in the NBA.
No, I'm just saying bottom 5. Charlotte, Toronto, Washington, New Orleans, and Utah.
The point is they're 7th, and whether that puts them at 1 to get Flag or Harper or Bailey or Demon or Edgecombe, whoever the hell it is they won't go after, I don't know. You definitely want to be in like the top 6.
Yes,
that
in
kid
a draft
in Illinois,
like this.
That I can't even say his name. The European kid, he looked awesome. He's 6'6". You got Edgecombe at Baylor. Demon at BYU's been awesome. Bailey Harper at Rutgers, and then you've, of course, got Cooper Flag. We'll see where it goes, but they blew out the Pelicans last night, and they're not on YouTube TV anymore, so
we're going to get any answer on what happened there?
Has any media organization reached out to the team and asked their press team?
It's not just the team. I would actually ask K2.
No, totally, but the Blazers are the
here?
ones that have given us the information since the beginning of the year, so they are the leads on this. If they want to say, hey, go ask K2, that's fine, but somebody ask the Blazers what the hell's going on in this city. We have terrible media. If this team were in Boston and this team weren't available to be watched, there would be an uproar all over the place. I am shocked. It is just a perfect representation of Pacific Northwest sports fan. Well, see if I can get him tomorrow. So ridiculous. Care about something.
I'm in the media, so you kind of just like took a shot at me.
No, I'm talking about you. I'm honestly, I'm talking more like regular news stations. It's like, is this not a story? Do people not care? Oh, somebody broke another window. Let's lead the news with that.
Shut up about the sun. Shut up about the sun.
Not being able to watch your sports team, the one sports team.
I mean, Schulte's rant is pretty valid here. Like they were on for 2 games in the new year.
Why am I taking arrows, man?
I don't know. You don't need to take an arrow. we're not journalists here. We don't report. We just come in and talk out of our butt for
the Nuggets
3
are
hours.
barely viewable in Denver.
Yeah,
they're
people
on a
don't care
weird
about
altitude
basketball in
thing.
Denver. They only care about the Broncos out there.
I mean,
like,
Broncos
why were
country,
they
that's
on
right.
for 2 games and then they were on twice on YouTube TV? The channel was there. I watched them both.
Well, the other thing is,
and then they just disappeared.
And a good team comes out with an explanation why that happens.
Yeah.
They also, I really am worried that at some point you're going to have a stroke mid-rant, and I don't want that to happen. They also said right at the start of the new year it'd be on, and then it wasn't.
And then it wasn't. And then it
was.
And now it's not on again.
I have an antenna. I watched.
Way to go.
Great game.
Yeah.
Great game, guys. Way to blow out the Pelicans. Look, we can argue about wins and losses all you want.
Oh, we will.
Any day I can watch them blow out a CJ McCollum team, I will be doing it with a smile.
That's enjoyable. I'm with you on that.
Carry your briefcase to the next president-player union. Overrated.
Yeah, he just cares about his vineyards.
All right, we got a lot more to get into. Dirt and Sprague back with more on The Fan.
It's the Vancouver Ford text line.
Plenty of time to talk sports.
and Sprague
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
on 1080 The Fan.
We'll get to the college football playoff at the top of the hour.
Text at the Vancouver Ford text line. Corn Pop cooking right now. Corn Pop's going off. Here he goes.
When did I become corn?
That's your
nickname.
That's your
Corn
new
Pop.
name, Corn Pop.
Come on, man. He's exploded with rage.
Vanderbilt.
You beat the
We can't trust your ass now.
the old like white gangster leader that Joe Biden said.
Yeah,
he
his
talked
old
to
buddy,
back.
Corn Pop, in the neighborhood.
The honeymoon.
Forgot about that.
Wasn't
What
that? This
does
was a
that have to
swag
do with
joke. I
me?
think we said we're just going to
No,
call him
yeah,
Corn
I
Pop.
know.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
it. You know
okay.
it. I don't think he heard
had
it,
no
and
clue,
so
yeah.
No, I
like
didn't.
So you smoking crack?
his new nickname is Corn Pop.
That's where we're going with from
Jordan
now on.
Schultzy Corn Pop.
Corn Pop's cooking.
Schultzy Corn Pop.
Let him cook.
I love that.
Here he comes.
That kind of actually fits. He is a corn pop.
It really does fit.
Stop attacking me on our own show.
I would love an answer from the organ. I did get a tweet yesterday from YouTube TV, and they were like, "Tell us more about your problem."
Oh, I hate those.
And I wanted to
tweets.
respond and be like, "This is not a you thing. This is an us thing."
What country did that tweet come from?
Yeah, probably Pakistan. I don't know. Somewhere overseas.
All right, good stuff there, Corn Pop. I want to ask you. The fire is unfortunately happening in LA, and again, we're thinking a lot of people. It's just awful images and videos, and the news has been stellar. I don't know if anybody saw this, or maybe everybody did, or man, you want to talk about one of the greatest shots ever made I've ever seen in my life? A helicopter dumped. What do they dump on these fires? It's not just water, right?
I think it's water.
Is it just water?
Sometimes it's just water because they were pulling right from the ocean.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah,
kept
they
dumping
basically
that.
just go down into the ocean water, scoop it up, and then they go drop it on the fire.
There was a helicopter scene over a Hollywood hill, just engulfed in flames. Live on the news, dropped its bucket, and it perfectly doused all of the fire. It's one of the greatest shots in human history.
Went Trey Young in Salt Lake City the other night. I'm calling game blouses, bitch. Here we go.
Somebody needs to tee up that video with like a Mike Breen.
That'd be a great video.
Iconic play-by-play. You know the way they tee up music to a
like
sports clip?
Titanic song to a game-winning
Right.
touchdown or whatever.
They need to do that with a Mike Breen iconic call. And maybe since LeBron's in LA, block my James! Just something paired with a Mike Breen call with that dousing of the fire
Yeah, that'd be
is
great.
amazing. There is now, because of the fires, unfortunately, LA was set to host a NFL playoff game on Monday.
Monday night, the Minnesota Vikings are in town.
And look, I know it's Thursday, but there is a lot of time between now and Monday with how this goes. We'll see if the game cannot be played because of the fire situation, which is going to be such a weird environment, even if it is played in L.A., they will be moving the game to Glendale.
which would be wild to have a playoff game in a different market. And it would essentially, the funniest thing about it, none of this is funny at all, but the whole argument about the NFL playoff structure is that why is a 10-win team allowed to host a playoff game because they won a crappy division, whereas Minnesota's the first team to ever win 14 games in the history of the NFL, but not get to host a playoff game.
Yes.
It never happened in the history of the National Football League, and I know we expanded schedules, and it happened to 13-win teams before, but this would almost nullify that entire argument, because I imagine if you move that game to Phoenix or Glendale to play where the Cardinals play, that you would probably get more Vikings fans there than Rams fans. Like, I bet there's a lot of snowbirds.
Rams fans are going through some stuff right now.
Well, there's not that many of them to
No.
begin with, and I bet there's a lot of snowbirds that move from Minnesota down to the Arizona area as years go on, and they probably still root for the Vikings, and there's probably a lot of those folks, and so it would be interesting to see that entire conversation nullified if the game is moved to Arizona.
I mean, it's not the most important thing at all in any way, but like that is kind of the takeaway from events like this is how things like sports pivot, change.
Yeah.
You remember, I can't remember why, was it COVID or was it a storm? Buffalo had to play a game in Detroit. Do you remember this?
I
It
think it
wasn't
was-
a Buffalo Lions game. It was Detroit.
I think it was the snowstorm game. I think that was the lake effect snow, and there was like 20 feet of snow, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
you can't get to and from the stadium. You
And
can't
I can't remember
do
who
it.
they played, but they played in Detroit.
They did, yeah.
Which was crazy. They had to get out of the snow, and they had to go to Detroit for it because Detroit
Yeah.
also gets snow. And so we've had things like not like this, but similar in teams having to play in different locations.
You've had to move it. It's happened in hurricanes a lot where teams have to play. Usually at the start of college football season, there's a couple of games every year that have to get moved.
Pelicans played in Oklahoma City.
Pelicans played in Oklahoma City. Stadiums get ruined. So all this stuff is happened, unfortunately, before. But it's a lingering thing in the first round. That's the last one. It's the Monday night game. I got a buddy who lives in Scottsdale. I'm going to text him and be like, you might get a bonus NFL game out of all this.
I would also say not only like what fans go for either team, if not, is it a heavy Viking lean? They may very well play this game at SoFi. It's going to be a really weird vibe, I would imagine, in that stadium, given how big and massive this fire is and how many people it's impacting.
Yeah, how many people are still going to be able to actually get to the stadium? I mean, we even brought this up last week in the first round of the college football playoff when you had the horrific incident on New Year's Eve, and then they had to postpone the Sugar Bowl. The Sugar Bowl, and there's a lot of people who are like, are we safe to go? Is there like a terrorist running around New Orleans right now? Like, what the hell's happening? And a lot of people had to, change their plans or had their tickets and the flight plans and all that kind of stuff. So there was almost a weird vibe for that game. But that was kind of a small, isolated incident with a lot of tourists who were in town. This is affecting, almost the entire area. So I don't know what the crowd would be like. I don't know what the level of smoke is like in Inglewood. That's a whole other thing you got to consider. Because remember, that stadium is not enclosed. It's a dome stadium, but it's open. And so if it rains and it's windy and all that stuff,
I think that's going to be part of the
elements come in. And so, if
it's,
I don't know what and how, I'm not great at my geography of how close Inglewood is to all that, but just a million decisions that need to be made. It would be a bummer, though, for the people down there to lose a home playoff game.
I think as of last night, the air quality at the stadium was in the upper 200s.
Dirt,
so
it's only.
I'm assuming that's bad.
Inglewood is only
Yeah.
20 minutes from Santa Monica, which
not
is
far.
engulfed right now.
Yeah.
So this game very well could be played in Glendale due to the fires going on in the LA area, and so that would just be a weird experience in general. It's a playoff game. We love playoff football.
Are we going to paint the field Rams colors?
You have to.
Right?
It's a pseudo home game. It's supposed to be a home game.
And they do have a grass field there, so you can change the paint on the end zones if you need to.
All right, we got a lot to get to in the second hour. Let's kick it off with the college football playoff. We got a playoff game tonight. Penn State, Notre Dame. Are you excited for it? Penn State, Notre Dame. What team do you think is going to win? We'll start the second hour there on the Fan.
Window Nation customer.
Let's get the playoff party started.
On spots, but I think it would have been worth it.
No challenge. First and goal. Dobbins spins his way into the end zone. We'll see you in the playoffs, LA Chargers and your fans.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com. Injured? Don't trust just anyone to something so personal. Call George McCoy at Warren Allen. Online at WarrenAllen.com.
Wild Card Week with Dirt and Sprague on 1080.
We got stuff to do. Hey, who's got it better than us?
The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Second hour of the program. Dirt and Sprague here on 1080 The Fan, the Odyssey app, 99.5 HD2, and YouTube.com/1080 AM The Fan. Good morning. January 9th, Thursday. Got a college football playoff game we're going to get to here in just a second. Nick Costos of You Better You Bet. He's the co-host with Ken Barkley.
Formerly Ken Barkley.
Well, formerly with
Ken Barkley.
I think he killed Ken Barkley by saying formerly Ken Barkley.
Yes, Nick Costos killed Ken Barkley.
Unless Ken Barkley changed his name.
That happened.
Who's on first? Ken Barkley's in Vegas, theoretically.
Yes.
And Nick Costos is still hosting You Better You Bet.
He's still doing the show.
He is a firecracker, bit of a corn pop himself, and he's also a Giant fan. So he's going through it right now.
They kept their coach and their general manager, who have just done a terrific job of building that organization.
We'll get his thoughts on the college football playoff, wild card weekend. The NFL has announced they've dropped super wild card.
We can't be super wild card anymore? We're just normal old wild card weekend?
It's the right decision.
Feels pretty super to me. 6 games, that's a lot of football.
But you didn't text friends, you guys watching Super Wild Card Weekend?
How do you know that? I felt really super every time I turned it on my TV.
Well, people argue this is the best one because there's 3 and 3.
Yeah, no, divisional rounds
Divisional's the best. It's the best teams with the, conference championships on the line.
We'll get rid of the riffraff this weekend. Yeah. There's going to be blowouts. It happens every wild card weekend. We go in thinking, all these games are going to be great, and then half of them end up being 30-point wins. So
no doubt. Get
rid of the riffraff, and then next weekend is the premier weekend of football.
The Vancouver Ford text line is one way you can reach the show. It is 503-864-6326. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them at vancouverford.com. The college football playoff semifinals start tonight.
Catch the fever, Bob.
The Orange Bowl. It is snowing in Florida, but not from the sky.
I see what you did there.
And we've got Penn State, Notre Dame. I said yesterday, you asked, I was at a 7 of excitement meter.
Okay, 7 out of 10.
Because, Dirt, here's the reality. I'll get to some James Franklin audio. Joe Klatt kind of makes his pick on his podcast. I like Joe Klatt. Sometimes I think he has wrong opinions, but so do I. So get your thoughts on it. Here's where I overall am on this game. I'm a 7 because the winner goes to the national championship. I'm a 7 because I'm an advocate of the 12-team playoff. I'm a 7 because it's a big college football game. But I'm not past a 7 because if Penn State wins tonight, Penn State winning the national championship will very much come back to bite me. I've had some really strong takes and some that have circulated.
You have, yeah, I forgot about that.
Also, Penn State can win the national championship, and I still will not recognize them as the best team, the second best team, or the third best team that played college football this year.
No.
They had to beat SMU at home in 20 degrees. They didn't do it because their offense was electric. They had to beat Boise State at a neutral site. Congratulations, Group of 5 team. Way to go. So they already have 2 playoff wins that I don't really respect all that much, given the stature of their program.
Incredibly fair.
I don't know how tonight is going to go. Notre Dame won with no 100-yard passer, but these are really good defenses. And so I'm basically not excited because Penn State having the opportunity to be in the national championship game kind of pisses me off. I also don't want my opinion to be wrong, and that's why I'm not past a 7.
Well, to add even more to that, my team beat them in the Big Ten title game, and they might end up going to the national title game, or in the Big Ten championship, they might end up going to the national title game. The national title game could be between 2 teams from the Big Ten that my team beat in the regular season, so that's just a lovely scenario that is existing in the back of my head.
I'm going to say something to piss off Beaver Husky fan here.
Yeah, fire away.
This should be Oregon, Notre Dame.
Yeah,
I'll just flat out say Oregon got their asses handed to them. It was embarrassing what Ohio State did, no doubt.
Yes, it was.
But they should have been playing Boise State.
They should have played SMU and Boise
or
State.
SMU or
There's
whoever.
just some
Indiana.
equation. Yeah.
There should have been some variation where they were the Boise State bye, and this is lined up to be Notre Dame, Oregon. And in that scenario, maybe Notre Dame beats them tonight. Who knows? But that's why I'm kind of pissed and out of 7.
The irony is they have made it to the semifinals of the college football season, and I know that Boise State, I don't know where they technically finished ranked and where SMU technically finished ranked, but they borderline don't have a top 10 win. I know Boise was hovering around the back end of the top 10 at the end of the regular season. SMU was 11th or 12th or wherever. It waited until all the way to the college football playoff for them to get one of those marquee wins. Previous to that, their best win on the year was 21-7 over Illinois.
Well, Notre Dame's best win of the year is A&M?
Is Texas A&M. They're very similar in but
prior
maybe
to the playoff.
Prior to the playoff,
yeah.
yes. And this is where there's a little bit of a different feeling about the two teams for me coming in, and that is Notre Dame beating Georgia to me is a much tougher path, even though whether it's one game or two, I know they had to beat Indiana in the first game, but having to get through Georgia in the semifinal is much more difficult than playing Boise State. No offense to Boise State. It's just not even close from a talent standpoint on the rosters. The good thing about the game tonight is it sounds like both guys who are key players on each team will be able to go. Abdul Carter, if you remember, got hurt in the Boise game. They held him out in the second half. Sounds like he's going to be able to go. They're not 100% sure yet, but he's going to go through warm-ups. He should be able to play.
Oh, that's going to be interesting to watch that running game against
right?
him.
And he's a stud. And then Jeremiah Love on the other side, who's been banged up a little bit late in the season. They are saying that he should likely be a full go, and he's maybe the best running back in the country. And one of those guys that if he could go to the NFL draft would be a first-round draft pick this year, but he's got one more year of eligibility until he's able to go. So that's one of the fears when you get these long seasons of how many of the key guys aren't able to go and who's not at full strength and how much does that determine the outcome of the game. Key guys on both sides. I know both teams are banged up, and Notre Dame lost one of their best defensive linemen in the win over Indiana in the first round of the playoff. Glad to hear both those guys should be able to go, though, tonight.
Get to the audio in the next segment. Do you know the spread of this game?
It's basically a pick 'em, if I'm not mistaken.
I think anything 1.5 or less, to me, it's a pick 'em.
It's pick 'em. Yeah.
I mean, what's the percentage?
Is that what it is, 1.5?
It's 1.5 right now. Who's favored?
I would favor Notre Dame.
You would?
I would.
You would be correct.
Okay.
Notre Dame is a 1.5 point favorite right now. This opened at 1.5. Same team favored. Still favored by 1.5.
Yeah.
Look, my opinion about Penn State, and the Notre Dame thing's been weird. I was off about them. After that Northern Illinois game, they rebounded and got through that schedule.
Steamrolled everybody.
I can't get that game out of my head. I watched almost that entire game. I only missed like a couple minutes of the first quarter. That's always going to be in the back of my head. The no conference championship game thing is a thing to me. All of that, right? The Penn State opinion might be wrong, but what I would say to counter myself is Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State. This is actually evidence that this is why expansion's a good thing. You can argue about the seeding and who played who and who got a bye and who hosted and what was their second. You can argue about that all you want. It's going to get changed. It's going to get tweaked after year one. There's no world that's existed in our lifetime where a Penn State, Ohio State, and maybe a Notre Dame, given the other good teams in college football, have this opportunity. And I think that's the argument. If it ends up being Penn State, Ohio State, there's never been a scenario where those two teams ever have a shot in hell of playing for the title game.
No.
So as much as I might not like Penn State, this has actually so far been a good argument for why you have expansion is teams are able to be somewhat human in that violent sport and still get their opportunity to go win a natty.
I think we need to start viewing it, more like we view the NFL, where the regular season is obviously important and you want to win all the big games and you want to beat your rivals and all that stuff, but it comes down to matchups, seedings, who you're playing,
right,
and who's playing best at the end of the year, which is largely what the NFL playoffs are decided by. When teams lose regular season games in the NFL, we don't freak out to the level that we do in college. Ohio State lost to Michigan in their last game of the regular season. And they wanted to literally murder Ryan Day. They wanted to find him and burn his house down and run him out of town as quickly as they can. They're 2 wins away from winning a national championship now, which is funny because if you flip it on the other side, you tell me I have to watch my team lose to Washington for a 4th straight year. The panic that week after would have been really rough, and everybody would have been coming for Dan Lannon. But you tell me I trade that for a national championship?
Yeah, you lose to Washington,
I do it in
but
a
you're
heartbeat.
Ohio State
I don't
here.
care. It doesn't matter. I'll lose to Washington for the next 10 years if it means winning national titles. It doesn't matter because national championship is the most important thing. And so it is funny how we're kind of slowly starting to evolve the way that we view this.
Mm-hmm.
I hope tonight's a really good game. I know we'll play some audio on the other side, but I'm just fingers crossed that we get a good, fun, competitive game. And look, Notre Dame's defense is really good. There's no doubt about that. I also question how many teams have they actually played this season with bona fide weapons like Penn State has.
Patron Allen is
a stud. I mean,
my God.
Tyler Warren's one of the best weapons in all of college
Easily,
football.
yes.
Drew Aller, if he came out, I think would be quarterback number 1 in this draft class potentially.
Good conditions to be playing in, too.
Great
It should
conditions.
not be a weather problem.
It's in Miami. Weather's fine, so all that's... And then Penn State on the other side, we look at them and say, Penn State's got a great defense. A month ago, they gave up 45 to Oregon. Oregon had 600 yards of offense and rushed for almost 200 yards in that game.
Let's carry this over because you are hinting at what I want to get to, and that is the matchup. Because you're not wrong, Notre Dame could very well run their way to it. But if they can't run, do they have the offense to beat Penn State?
Can they throw the ball to beat them?
And I know
Can
Notre
Penn
Dame...
State stop their run game, though, is my biggest question. I don't know if they can.
And you can obviously flip that the other way. Can Penn State operate and go against that Notre Dame defense? We got some coaching audio. Joe Klatt, we'll get to some more of this. Who do you like in this game? Penn State, Notre Dame. A little bit more on it next on The Fan.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
Nick Costos joining us. You better you bet coming up here for the Daily Ticker. Crunch time is around the corner as well. We're talking about this Penn State Notre Dame playoff game, and you know, both are kind of this. They're true. Is Penn State going to be able to move the ball on that Notre Dame defense, and is Penn State going to be able to stop the run of Notre Dame? To me, Katron Allen and Tyler Warren, given the positions they play, Aller is the quarterback. Aller certainly has some shaky moments. Mm-hmm. The Oregon game, right? He gets off to this awful start, and then he looks amazing. And that's kind of who he's been largely for his career. But I would say, of the two teams, and I'm picking Notre Dame tonight, I would feel a little more maybe confident in Penn State because they have more ways offensively, it feels like, to beat you.
To win tonight or to win a national title, are you talking?
To win tonight.
To win tonight,
in this matchup, I'm picking Notre Dame because, well, yeah, the opinion. But I think if you looked at it, Notre Dame's defense is good, okay, but are they going to stop the run, get to Aller, and stop the pass, too? It's very possible. Mm-hmm. But the other side is, does Riley Leonard run the way he ran against Georgia? Does Notre Dame with Love or whoever ends up playing at running back, are they able to run the ball? Because if they can't, then how are they winning?
That's a legitimate question, and I think it's one of the biggest reasons why I still have a bit of a hard time seeing Notre Dame winning a national title.
They're a little bit one-dimensional.
They're one-dimensional offensively. Riley Leonard has had a lot of games this year where he has not needed to do a ton throwing the football, and it's credit to their defense. It's a credit to their offensive line. It's a credit to Jeremiah Love in the back that he is, and also a credit to who he is as an athlete. But it doesn't mean that he can't throw the ball. I mean, he's had games where he's been able to sling it a little bit. I actually view this game, it's ironic that a lot of people view it as kind of a defensive struggle, low scoring, Notre Dame, one-dimensional offensively, blah, blah, blah. Penn State's got a great defense. I view this as being a bit more high scoring than we're giving it credit for.
Ooh, okay.
Do you think USC has an elite offense this year? Would you label them an elite offense?
Not enough to say confidently yes.
USC scored 35 points against this Notre Dame defense and threw 2 pick sixes, by the way, so it could have been more than that. You remember what happened when they played Penn State? They scored 30 and the game went to overtime. So, these two teams, when they have played better offenses this year...
USC should have beaten Penn State and had a good chance
to beat Notre Dame.
With Notre Dame.
They were right there in both games. I mean, they had no business losing the end of that Penn State regulation game where they didn't try and kick a field goal. And that was, coaching malpractice. But the larger point is that when these teams have played better offenses, they have given up points and yards. I think we're overreacting a little bit to Notre Dame in the way that they won that Georgia game. Georgia moved the ball early. They fumbled inside the 20-yard line. They had drops throughout the course of the game. Notre Dame returned a kickoff for a touchdown, and they had a strip sack. So all those things kind of pile on top of each other. And Georgia was an offense that can't throw the ball vertically with a very high level of efficiency. And so Penn State got to play SMU in 20-degree weather in their first game, where, yes, their defense was dominant, but it's SMU. And then they played Boise State, and they won that game, and they looked great in the process. But Boise State made a little charge there in the third quarter. So I don't view these defenses as like these, how do you crack the code? How do you possibly score against either of them? I think Penn State, if they can, and we'll get to the Joe Klatt stuff, but he's spot on in his analysis, some of their play calling in key situations is ridiculously bad.
Yes.
And that was the case in the Boise game where they were running the ball for 8 or 9 yards a clip. And then you'd get in a 3rd and 1, and let's call a trick play where Tyler Warren's throwing a pass. It's
right.
Like, what are you doing? If their offensive coordinator can get out of his way, they got weapons all over the field. And Penn State, when they have go back and look at Penn State in their game against Ohio State in the regular season when they played. Ohio State ran the ball down their throat. And Ohio State, yes, is loaded offensively and has more talent on the outside than Notre Dame does, no doubt about it. But Notre Dame can run the ball as good as anybody, and they have a quarterback who's elite doing it. I think we got a game that's, 34-28, 31-28, somewhere in there. I think it's going to be much more high scoring than we think.
Here is Joe Klatt on who he's picking and why.
They also know who they are and lean into that blueprint defensively and offensively. They know what they are offensively, and they don't generally veer outside of that. That's the one question I have about Penn State. And this is why I trust Notre Dame just a little bit more, is because from Penn State's perspective, I love this team. This is a really, really good team that at times can get in their own way in these games.
And it's interesting. You mentioned the play calling there because he's kind of highlighting some of that as well. Of if it's 4th and 1, are you giving it to Allen or are you doing a shotgun?
Just run the football,
15-yard throw to
right.
Warren or whoever the hell in the middle of the field. And that's where I'm interested in. I want to get to a James Franklin cut here before we get to Costos quickly. I think some of this also boils down to coach. Partly why I picked Georgia against Notre Dame and ended up being really wrong. I just leaned on close game, a little bit of the SEC stuff, unfortunately, as much as I railed against it this year.
It's Kirby. He's got 2 titles.
It was Kirby. And I had highlighted that Freeman had back-to-back moments against Ohio State where 10 guys went out there.
Yes, he did.
And that wasn't good. But he's my age. He's a young coach. And so, like, he clearly has learned that special teams play he ran on Kirby where it was like all out and then off and then, all right, you got him to jump. That was brilliant. If Day does that or Dan Lanning or other if Kirby would have done that to him, I know we talked about it. I feel like it would have been made an even bigger deal of narrative of like, oh my God, look how genius this guy is. And so he's got a little bit of redemption going on for himself. He lost to Northern Illinois and he asked the coach. The coach basically offered to call and talk to him to tell him what they learned about Notre Dame. And he took him up on it.
He did, yeah.
And I don't think a lot of coaches in that sport at that position would do that, and he did. Here is James Franklin. It was basically the James Franklin press conference yesterday. Marcus Freeman wants nothing to do with these press conferences.
No.
And Franklin loves to talk. James Franklin loves himself.
He loves the sound of his own voice.
And here he is talking about one way to fix college football. Take a listen and remember who's next to him at this podium.
I think it should be consistent across college football. I think, again, this is no knock at Coach or Notre Dame, but I think everybody should be in a conference. I think everybody should play a conference championship game, or no one should play a conference championship game. I think everybody should play the same number of conference games, but just the numbers are going to make things more challenging if you're playing one more conference game. So I just think things need to be consistent across college football.
I don't think people would disagree with the opinion in general. It is pretty crazy to say out loud, this is not a knock at Coach or Notre Dame when it's literally only Notre Dame, not in a conference. You're only talking about Notre Dame.
That's it. Are there any other? There's one other independent, I think, but nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Notre Dame's the only one
one
that's going to be in this thing that's in that position.
I mean, he's 100% spot on. I don't know why anybody would disagree. Notre Dame fan, I'm sure, rolls their eyes every time they hear that because they don't want to change the status quo. They get the payouts and the college football playoff money that doesn't have to share with a conference, that they get to bring that check in. If they go to the national title game, I think it's like another $20 million that they won't have to share. If Ohio State beats Texas, they have to share that money with the rest of the Big Ten, so they're getting like, what, $1.8 million because there's 18 teams in the Big Ten? I mean, it's just a laughable system that there's no standardized scheduling. That's always been the case. Notre Dame has years, to their credit, where they schedule tough. This was a year where things broke their way in the regular season. Their hardest game was Texas A&M, and they played them in week 1. USC wasn't very good. I know we gave them credit for top 25 wins at the end of the year against Army and Navy, but come on, it's Army and Navy.
If we're talking about this conversation.
This was a schedule that was a very easy year for them. They got to host a playoff game because of it. They didn't have to play in a conference championship game, but then they would point to the years like next year. You know who their first 5 or 6 games are against next year? They open on the road at Miami. Then they get Texas A&M at home, Purdue, who sucks. They go at Arkansas. They get Boise State, and they get USC. So that's not a murderer's row where they can't win all those games, but those are 4 or 5 teams that are borderline top 25. Miami's going to be competitive in the ACC. A&M's building. Boise State's going to be good again. And USC is probably in a win-or-die situation for Lincoln Riley in year, what it'll be, 4. So they have years where the schedule's a little bit harder than others. But James Franklin is 100% right here. I think he's the lesser-than coach in this game. I'm with you. I'm taking Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame because of that. But he's preaching to the choir that we should have standardized scheduling in college football.
I can't wait for all of my thoughts to be wrong tomorrow.
It'll be 13-10. Nobody can score a touchdown. Teams can't get over midfield.
Penn State wins.
James Franklin outcoaches Marcus. The one thing about Penn State that I will point out, because I know we're probably going to go, is that they find ways to hurt themselves a lot. They should have blown Boise State out. That game should have been 28-0 in the second quarter.
It started out that way.
It was 14-0. Boise State couldn't do squat. They missed a field goal, and then they fumbled the exchange, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, there's life. They can do that in games where they allow teams an upper hand.
Nick Costos, you bet. Who does he like in the playoff tonight and tomorrow? Super formerly, R.I.P., wild card weekend around the corner, and what cereal are the New York Giants? Nick Costos joins us next on The Fan.
This is a wild card week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Reynolds Defense Firm. If you've been arrested for DUI, you need a team of attorneys you can put your trust into. Call Reynolds Defense Firm today online at reynoldsdefensefirm.com. First on The Fan, the Blazers smacking the Pelicans for their 13th win of the season in New Orleans last night, 119-100 the final. They got to turn right back around, though. They're in Dallas to face the Mavericks tonight. Tip-off set for 5:30 p.m. for that one. College football playoff semifinals getting going tonight as well. That's happening between Penn State and Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish, a 1.5-point favorite. Kick off at 4:30 on ESPN. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Your favorite fan shows are on YouTube. Mash the subscribe button and like us. In this wide world of sports, some stories can slip through the cracks.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules.
Pelican Brewing presents The Daily Ticker, where Dirt and Sprague hit the big stories you've heard about, and some you haven't.
How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
The Daily Ticker with Dirt and Sprague is poured by Pelican Brewing, your local coastal brewery. Independently brewing since 1996. Pelican Brewing, Born at the Beach.
All right, give me a second here. We got to get through our reads, and then we'll bring our guest on because we're excited to talk to him about not only the wild card round of the playoffs this weekend, but also his NFL team because we saw their decision earlier this week, and we thought we got to get this guy on.
I'm going to time you.
The Daily Ticker brought to you by Pelican Brewing, now offering their signature Pelican West Coast IPA on a shelf near you. Raise your glass drink on Pelican Brewing, born at the beach. Oh, and by the way, on the line is Nick Costos, host of You Better You Bet, an Odyssey Sports Betting Insider. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Catch You Better You Bet weekdays 3 to 7 Eastern on the BetQL network and watch from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC Sports Fast Channel or Peacock. Boom goes the dynamite.
25 seconds.
You can follow him on Twitter at the Costos.
Gotcha.
Nick, good morning to you. Before we get to Wild Card Round, which is no longer Super Wild Card Round, but it's still super to me, I saw the decision the Giants made, and we just thought we got to get Costos on this week. How are you doing as a fan? How have you handled the news of a coach and a GM not getting fired?
Well, great to be on with you guys, first off. And I apologize for the War and Peace style read that Odyssey sent you to do for me. But you read it very well, so thank you very much.
You got it.
Yeah, I would say, it feels a little – it's not disingenuous to say this, but it feels a little weird to say this because my team has won 4 Super Bowls in my lifetime. I was, cognizant for 3 of them. So I'm 3 years old in 1986 when the Giants win their first Super Bowl. But I've seen 3, 90, 07, and 11. I've kind of been I feel like a beaten down fan at this point, which I know, again, is ridiculous given I've seen them win 3 championships. But, the last decade has been so bad, and the owner, I think, doesn't know what he's doing, that I think I've actually reached a point of apathy where, how many times can you get upset about the same thing before you just say, it is what it is, and you accept it. So it's a terrible move. I don't understand anyone that would justify it. Year 3 of the regime yielded a 3-14 record. They were the worst team in the league, whether they're picking number 1 or not. The owner said he doesn't think the roster is necessarily better than it was when they were hired. What? Why would you keep them? Because he's dumb. So yeah, it sucks. But I do have a couple Super Bowl DVDs that I can watch to keep me warm at night.
He also, yesterday, I think he basically said, how long do you give before you judge the roster? He said, well, I don't have much longer. And I'm like, well, why did you keep these guys if they're on such a
I'm going to die soon.
And also, if you're them now, think of it. And look, any team could do this. This is human nature. Where if you're them now, okay, so you're Dable and Shane now. Let's say you draft a quarterback, right? And whether he's good or not, Cam Orchard or Sanders, whoever it is. And let's say that the quarterback plays well towards the end of the year, but they go 5-12. Do you bring Dable and company back and you say, okay, well, Dable's going to keep tutoring this quarterback?
Right.
Do you fire the coach? And then whoever comes in next is saddled with a quarterback that they didn't pick.
Mm-hmm.
So it is ass backwards in every way, shape, and form. I think it's terrible. I think they're awful. I think they're going to be bad again next year.
You are one of my favorite you're probably my favorite New York-based sports media personalities. I love the passion. You guys on the East Coast are far more angry and care a little more about it than we are on the West Coast smoking our weed. So I love what you do, and Ken used to be a big staple on this show every week. I think you've done a great job post-Ken with Femi. The show's been a lot of fun. I want to ask you, yesterday on the show, we talked about cereal.
Also, just want to throw this out there.
Yes.
I used to smoke a lot of weed. Unfortunately, since I had my daughter, that avenue of pleasure on the highway of life has unfortunately been closed.
Touche. But you guys on the East Coast have an ability to still be angry about sports whereas we just lay back on the couch and we're like, well, let's just watch animal documentaries, my man. I want to ask you, we talked about cereal on the show yesterday randomly. What cereal would the New York Giants be to Nick Costos?
Oh, it's a good one. Probably not frosted wheat, which is bad also, but probably just regular shredded wheat. Yeah. I always thought was really bad.
Listeners nailed it.
Bad, but bland also. Now you could go aggressively bad. I don't know. I once got I don't know. I had someone tell me this was a couple years ago. Get an Ezekiel grain, the cereal that was this ridiculous grain, really healthy cereal, and I was excited. It's $10. I was like, okay, this is going to be really good. And it was horrific. I don't remember what it was. It was Ezekiel grain. I remember that. That's the New York Football Giants.
That's the spot they're in right now. We're talking with Nick Costos. You better you bet at the Costos on Twitter. By the way, we do want to ask because our listeners miss. We used to have Ken Barkley on every week. He was a staple on the show. We loved him. Our audience loved him. Is he alive? Is Ken Barkley doing okay? Do you talk to him?
Yeah, I've literally actually literally texting with him while you guys called me to come on to do this interview.
Okay.
So yes, Ken's doing great. We talk, like, not every day, but we talk pretty frequently about sports, just about, like you host a show with someone every day for 5 years. It's like, it's hard to turn that off, so we still talk a lot. He's doing awesome. And I know just because he would tell me that he was very fond of you guys and very fond of coming on. And I know that because he had said to me that you guys had asked him, when he was leaving, like, hey, would you still be willing to come on?
Yeah.
And he actually, like, wrestled with that decision of, like, should I still do this? So, I could just tell you, just because I know, he wanted to fully unplug and really, like, get into what he was doing. But I know he loved you guys and he loved coming on the station, and he's doing great. I will pass that along to him when I talk to him next.
Is it weird, Nick, to say out loud, like, I'm glad he's doing well, but I was kind of rooting for him not, so he could go back to do the show with you?
So he's back in media
and come on with us? Like, I'm still a big fan of your show now, but like I was also a big fan when you and Ken were doing it as well, and so I miss him, but like I'm glad he's doing well, but like secretly wish he'd come back and do the media stuff too.
No, I certainly understand all of that. And look, we're all hosts, right? Which means that we all have egos, like, to varying degrees. Mine's pretty big. So, you face a situation like that, I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, look, Ken's my friend. And this is the truth. This is going to sound like I'm making it. It's the truth. People that know me could tell you. I don't root against anybody. Like, my whole MO is, as long as I'm doing well, like, I hope everybody does well.
Yeah.
Like, there's enough money out there for everyone to make money. So, was I bummed when Ken said he was leaving? Like, of course, because I love doing the show with him. The show was great. But also, like, I really want him to do well. And then it becomes, for me, okay, great. Now here's a new challenge for me. Now it's up to me to make this show even better than it was.
Right.
And look, like with Femi, I think the show, it's a different show. But that's okay. Like, it has to be a different show. I think the show is awesome. And obviously, like, you could say I'm biased, and it's true. But, like, the show is legitimately great. And I think that's kind of validated with, the fact that we're now on NBC Sports now, and the lineup that includes, like, Dan Patrick and Dan Levitard and Pro Football Talk, et cetera. So yes, like, it was bittersweet when he left. I'm happy he's doing great. And I am happy for the new challenge that I am faced with every day in making this new show great.
Well, you're doing an awesome job. It's been a ton of fun to watch the journey. And I remember the first time we had you on the show, we were live out at a golf tournament in the middle of August, and it was a preseason week. And we're like, let's get this guy on. It should be a lot of fun. And you ranted for like 5 straight minutes about preseason NFL lines. And we thought, this guy's incredible. We got to get this guy back on. So we don't have preseason NFL lines to ask you about. We got wild card weekend, man. Like, when you see the board, we used to ask Ken the dumbest questions possible. Like, is this a trap? And he just laugh at us and call us idiots. That's why we love having him on every week. You see the wild card board go up. I know some of the lines have moved slightly in one direction or the other. What was like any things that just like jumped at you immediately of those 6 games this weekend?
Well, so, I can talk to you guys the way that can, because, like, I do a lot of radio interviews, right? And, like, it's like Steelers Ravens, for example, right? And I'm sure Ken would say stuff like this to you. Like, I've been joking for a couple days with people. I'm going to get asked like 50 times over the next couple days, like, what's your bet on Steelers Ravens? The point spread's Ravens 9.5. And my answer is, well, I teased on Sunday night Baltimore and Buffalo, so I have Ravens -2.5, and I also have Steelers +10, which helps nobody at current market. But hey, like them's the breaks. You can listen to my show like all week when we talk about this stuff. So as it sits currently right now, I would say that my favorite bet, and I need a little time here just to make sure that everything's going to be good, is going to be Green Bay +4.5 on the road at Philadelphia. I want to make sure that Jordan Love is going to be good to go, like fully good to go. And if he is, I think that we may see Jalen Hurts be a little rusty. First game in a couple weeks, coming off a concussion. I don't think he's just coming out and slinging the ball all over the yard. He was concussed 2.5 weeks ago. He still hasn't cleared protocol. This was not like a regular concussion. I'm not insinuating that like he's going to be awful in the game. But this was not like a regular concussion. Like, he's been out for almost 3 weeks now, and he's been in the concussion protocol. So Packers +4.5 is going to be a bet for me. I did bet, and it doesn't make me feel good to say this. I bet the Texans +3. I hate it. I hate myself for making the bet. I actually think the point spreads. I think that point spread's out of whack. I do think the Chargers should be favorites. I don't think they should be a 3-point favorite. If anyone's out there listening saying, well, what's the difference, 2.5 and 3? Well, 3 is the number mathematically that lands most in the NFL. There's a gigantic difference between the two. So Texans +3 is a bet for me. I'll just say, like, anyone out there that disagrees with me, you might be right. Just do yourself a favor. If you like the Chargers, lay -2.5. If you like Houston, bet +3. Give yourself the best chance to win. I have thoughts on the other games also, but those are two that stand out.
Well, let me ask you about one of those games because there's some news that came out. Unfortunately, there's these fires in Los Angeles going on, and it's really sad, the sports angle of it, and it's not that it's important in the grand scheme, but the Rams are supposed to host. Inglewood's 20 minutes from where these fires are raging right now. We don't know what's going to happen. They could end up playing in Glendale. How much of where they play the game and all of that going on, I mean, I imagine some of these players are being impacted personally by this as well.
Yeah.
How do you view, and we understand, let's get out in front, there are much more serious things than sports, but keeping it in the sports little bubble, how much of what's going on in L.A. do you kind of monitor with Vikings-Rams?
Well, so the way I'll answer the question is like this. There are teams in the NFL that I think there's a lot of disagreement on home field advantage and how much it matters, because it used to just be assumed, well, you give 3 points for home field. Well, I mean, it's crazy. Like, there's no way that Jacksonville, not to bleep on Jacksonville, but whatever, not a great home field advantage, that Jacksonville and Denver at altitude are the same thing, or that Minnesota and the Chargers are the same thing in terms of home field, or New Orleans playing in those crazy domes, right? So let's say that the game were in Minnesota and just there are fires in Minnesota, right? Something happens in Minnesota, they need to move the game. That is a huge, huge deal if it were reversed and the game were in Minnesota and not LA. So I'm not saying it doesn't matter at all. It does. It helps the Vikings for sure a little bit for the Rams not to be playing in their home stadium. But I mean, the Rams and the Chargers, and more so for the Chargers, but neither team has a great home field advantage in that building. We all know this, right? The NFL team that people most like in Los Angeles is the team that plays in Vegas. The Raiders are the favorite team in LA. So I actually don't think it matters that much. A slight help to Minnesota if the game is played elsewhere. But, I mean, we're around to pick them anyway for the game, pick the winner of the game. I don't think that changes whether the game's played in L.A. or whether it's played in Arizona or elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree with you there. He is the host of You Better You Bet, Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, Nick Costos. Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app, and go check out his show, You Better You Bet, and give him a follow on Twitter, @TheCostos. Great catching up with you, man. Enjoy Wildcard Weekend. Tell Ken Barkley we love him, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
You got it. Wishing everybody minimal sweats, winning bets, the absolute very best of luck.
There you go. Great stuff.
The iconic tag out.
The iconic tag out from Nick Costos, man. That guy's a ball of energy. We love talking to him. And the Daily Ticker, as always, brought to you by our great friends at Pelican Brewing, now offering their signature Pelican West Coast IPA on a shelf near you. Raise a glass. Drink on Pelican Brewing. Born at the beach. I want to get to a game that he just talked about. That's an interesting angle. Philly, Green Bay. Game of the weekend in the NFL playoffs. Do we agree on Jalen Hurts and his potential concussion having a big impact on it? Let's dive into a little bit of that next on The Fan.
Who's stinking it up?
Woo! Do not go in there.
It's time for Who's Stinking It Up, a sports lowlight that's ripped from the headlines.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Brought to you by Three Mountains Home Services. Schedule your appointment online at threemountainhomeservices.com.
Now, no way he's making this at the buzzer, right?
Sharp. Yes, he is! You knew it was going.
This is... Okay, I'll give you some words because you're looking at me.
It speaks for
this
itself,
is insane,
really.
though. This is insanity.
Shaden Sharp got off to a great first half, and the Blazers blow out the lowly Pelicans. Jason Benetti, Lamar Hurd there on the Blazers call. Blazers get the blowout win in New Orleans, 119-100.
Jason Benetti on the call of games has been such a breath of fresh air, especially after the way the road trip started. I didn't see much of that game because it wasn't on YouTube TV. Nice to see CJ McCollum, though, still lifting an organization on his own without Damian Lillard.
Absolutely. He's a one. Who's stinking it up? The New Orleans Pelicans, because they're god-awful. Brought to you by Three Mountains Home Services. Make your home services delightful. Let the pros tackle the projects you need completed. Schedule an appointment online. Three Mountains Home Services. That's threemountainhomeservices.com.
George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan. It's crunch time.
Let's go!
Where Dirt and Sprague crunch the hot topics you want to hear.
What's the pressure? Don't sit here and act like there's no... We get nervous teeing off in front of a gallery on the 10th hole at Eastmoreland.
Crunch time, brought to you by Crunch Fitness. With memberships as low as $9.99 per month. Find your crunch time in Portland, Vancouver, and online at crunch.com.
Hey, Crunch Time, as always, brought to you by Crunch Fitness. Memberships as low as $9.99 a month. Find your Crunch Time in Portland, Vancouver, online at crunch.com. Interesting to think of the ramifications of games this weekend. Now, Costos didn't say that he thinks Green Bay is going to beat Philadelphia. He just thinks it's too many points. Right now, the line in Philly and Green Bay is 4.5. That is your line. If you like Green Bay a lot earlier in the week, I know you were probably waiting on some Jordan Love news. That line's hovered around 5.5. You could have got a little bit more earlier, depending on when you bet it. Some money has come in on Green Bay. It's gone down a little bit. It is funny to think, though, of we kind of did this going into the college football playoff of coaches. If they lose early, what's the narrative? Who's on freak-out alert?
Right.
If Philadelphia is to lose their first playoff game again this year, so that's a reminder, everybody, last year how their season ended. They tailspun at the end of the year after, a 10-1 or 11-1 start, whatever it was. Back half of the regular season was really bad. Then they get blown out by Tampa on the road in the wild card round of the playoffs, and that led to everybody thinking that Sirianni was going to get fired. They kept him around, comes back for another year. They win the division. Don't get the number one seed, but here they are back in the playoffs. If they lose right out of the gate again, that is a city that doesn't handle winning very well. But it is an interesting point where you have a game where both quarterbacks are dealing with something. Jordan Love, more of a physical injury that he has to overcome. Jalen Hurts, we haven't seen now in 2 weeks because of the concussion. And he's cleared. He was back at practice. Like, he's going to play this weekend. Not many things could keep him out of that playoff game, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. But that, to me, is still the best game of the weekend. And just in terms of ramifications of winner and loser, and Costos seems to like Green Bay plus the 4.5.
You know, what's interesting here is I think Sirianni's going to get fired if they lose this game.
If they lose, he's done.
And look, Nick Costos, he living every day in the gambling sports media content sphere, so probably more listen to Nick Costos. I actually feel the opposite. I actually wasn't concerned about Jalen Hurts. He's going to practice today. I understand the rust stuff. I think he's been throwing on the side. He already has chemistry established.
Yeah, he was back at practice yesterday, so he's going.
With his weapons, I really like Philadelphia's defense. I think it's kind of been the under-talked about side for them. Not that we out here talk about the Eagles all that much. But their D coordinator came out and said, I don't want to be a head coach anymore. He's given up. He had his opportunity. It didn't go well. Fair or not fair. He's just going to be a DC forever, Fangio. The other side is interesting because I knew Love was going to play. He said that in the post game of the Bear game. He's like, I'm playing, but it hurts. You know, Green Bay's been weird this year.
They have.
Green Bay got out the gate against Philadelphia, and that was a game until it wasn't because, well, the field sucked and Love got hurt. And that was really unfortunate. And Willis kind of settled things for them, played better than a lot of us thought he would. I'm curious to see what they can do with Jacobs on the ground against that Philadelphia front seven. And if this game goes how I think it's going to go, and the Packers lose, you're not firing LaFleur by any stretch. I think Philadelphia may fire Sirianni, but I do have questions. Are we just going to keep... What's interesting, and I like to use my team from time to time as an example here. The Niners missed the playoffs this year. They have an all-time. They have a bad season by their standards after losing heartbreakingly in the Super Bowl overtime, right?
Yes.
People love to debate when these random seasons happen for the Niners about Shanahan.
Yeah, where is he? Is he a leader? Is he a good coach?
Because you will never get past the narrative that he lost a Super Bowl, even though he wasn't the coach of the Falcons. That's somehow all him. Not Dan Quinn in the defense.
No.
All Shanahan.
Yeah.
And so because of that point to where they are at now, when they have down years, people are actually asking out loud, you going to fire Shanahan? What's Matt LaFleur won? And look, Matt LaFleur is a good coach. This isn't to suggest he's not. Lost the division round last year.
He lost in a home playoff game to Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan a couple of years ago.
Didn't make the playoffs in 2022 with Aaron Rodgers when we all thought Aaron Rodgers was still good. Lost the division round the year before that. Had one of the dumber decisions to kick a field goal against Tom Brady and COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting he's going to get fired or should. What's the narrative on the other side?
It is interesting how they're
banged up.
Sirianni.
No big deal. Keep going. Okay, all right. But that guy doesn't win. And so I just look at other smart coaches in the league. When Shanahan doesn't make the playoffs for 1 year, should they fire him? Matt LaFleur largely won nothing, and it's just next year. Matt LaFleur's a genius. Here comes Jordan Love. It's just like
he's got a great hairline, man.
He's
got a phenomenal hairline.
Fantastic head of hair.
Phenomenal head of hair.
Good haircut, good hairline, all of that. What's the opinion opposite? We all have the same opinion on Sirianni.
I think a lot of it has to do with the market too. Like the reason we have that opinion on Nick Sirianni, well, one, he's a little more brash, right? So when you're a little more brash, you're going to bring some of it on you when you lose, and he'll talk ass and yell at his own fans and do all that. LaFleur's never done it. I think the other part of it is the market that he lives. Like he just is in Philadelphia. You know that's the way it works. When you lose games like that,
absolutely,
you're going to get fired. They fired Doug Peterson 2 years after he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It was their first ever Super Bowl win. So I do think that's part of it, but it's a completely valid argument, especially for a Green Bay team. Like, go look at Green Bay's schedule this year. How many wins over playoff teams did they have?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they beat the Rams, so I'll give them that. Texans was a playoff
but
win.
The Texans aren't a team you're like bragging about, right?
That's it.
They're kind of the Indiana of the NFL playoffs.
And that was a 24-22 win at home, and like an ugly kind of game. That's it. They were both a little bit later on in the year. The other loss to the Lions.
Couldn't beat the Lions.
Lost to the Lions twice.
Couldn't beat the Packers.
Lost to the Vikings twice. That's another playoff team. Like, it lost to the Eagles at the end, all the way back in Brazil at the start of the season. So
I mean, you can just say the Commanders won on a jump ball, and so it doesn't matter. They lost at home to the Bears.
They did.
And again, I know Love left and Watson got hurt, but Watson's been banged up throughout this whole season. That was really unfortunate because I still really like Christian Watson, but you lost to the Bears, who don't know if you watched how their season went like after their London game. It didn't go well.
Not very good, Bob. Not very good. So Costos likes Packers plus 4.5. Sprague on the other side of it. This will be a fun one to see where everybody goes for Sprague in the line tomorrow. Look, it's probably the marquee matchup of the opening weekend of the NFL.
See, and
playoffs.
that's I think
in terms of brands, coaches, storylines for me. I'm not saying it's going to be the best game, but I would be surprised if that game doesn't have the best rating.
I was going to play that game tomorrow on the show going into the other semifinal and the playoff weekend of what is the best game to people, because I started the week saying that one on paper. It's Packers-Eagles, right? It's a team that many may still believe can win the NFC in Green Bay. Maybe, maybe not. And then it's Philadelphia with this like background feel of, are you going to choke?
Are you going to do it again? You going to come up short again?
And so like I get it, but I'm starting to lean, is there another wild card game that actually might be more fun and just better overall? And that's the game in South Florida.
Well, we did this similarly to last year to the Packers and their game against the Cowboys, and they hung 48 on them against the NFC East champs in the opening weekend of the NFL playoffs. So they got a good track record right now against that division and division winners. They did it last year. We got a lot to get to in the final hour. Crunch Time, as always, brought to you by Crunch Fitness. Memberships as low as $9.99 a month. Find your Crunch Time in Portland, Vancouver, online at crunch.com. Loaded final hour. We'll dive a little bit more into the playoff game tonight. What a weekend of football, and it all begins this evening down in Miami. Loaded final hour. Don't go anywhere. Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
The Fan.
This update is brought to you by PG Long Floor Covering, carpet, hardwood, or laminate flooring, cleaning, or restoration. Call PG Long, your Northwest flooring experts, pglongllc.com. First on The Fan, your Blazers smacking the Pelicans for the 13th win of their season, 119-100 the final. Denny Avdia leading the way for Portland with 26 points. Shaedon Sharpe also had 21. The Blazers right back at it tonight. They're in Dallas against the Mavericks. Tip-off set for 5:30 p.m. for that one. And some bad news for Oregon football. Both Doug's edge rusher Jordan Birch and left offensive tackle Josh Connolly declaring for the NFL draft, so 2 more starters that Oregon will have to replace next season. College football playoff semifinals getting going tonight with the Orange Bowl between Penn State and Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish 1.5-point favorites. Kickoff set for 4:30 on ESPN. That one actually going to be joined in progress here on The Fan. You got the Oregon Ducks taking on, 15th ranked, by the way, taking on Ohio State in Columbus. The Buckeyes a 3.5-point favorite in that one. Coverage getting going right here on The Fan at 2:30. Tip-off at 3 on the Big Ten Network. And once again, we will move right into the college football playoff semifinal matchup after that Ducks game against Ohio State. Also, over on 9-10, the Pilots hitting the road, taking on the University of San Francisco tonight. They are a 20.5-point underdog, Portland is. Coverage starts on 9-10 at 6:30, tip-off at 7 on ESPN+. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, The Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Hot Corner, now in its new time. Tuesdays at 7 after Isaac and Sue on Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan. It's gonna get wild this week.
And that should do it. Extra special here in Denver. They'd only beaten the Chiefs one time in the last 18 meetings. And today, they hammer Kansas City to clinch the last playoff spot in the AFC.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com. Injured? Don't trust just anyone to something so personal. Call George McCoy at Warren Allen. Online at WarrenAllen.com.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080.
A great story. The fans deserve it.
The Fan.
Hey, let's do this. Final hour, Dirt and Sprague here on Portland Sports Leader, 1080 The Fan, 99.5 HD2, the Odyssey app, live on YouTube as we are every day. Let me find out.
What's the play?
It's in honor of Ken Barkley and having Nick Costos on. Some of the Ken Barkley drops in our life.
We should have played one of those for him.
We should have. I totally forgot.
It's so good.
We'll have to reach out to him again at
You know
some
what?
point.
I like money. You know what? I don't like jokes.
I told Dirt when it's close to the year since we interviewed him, and I can't remember when that was. If that was March, was that April? I don't know.
I'm trying to remember.
June.
Hey, listeners were reminiscing on the Vancouver Ford text line earlier about the show that we had a bunch of corporate bigwigs in that we did over at the the building over
X,
here.
Y, and Z event that we
whatever
didn't really
that
need
thing
to
was.
be at. I don't know why we were there.
He was making fun of us, and we were just looking around like, there's a lot of people from corporate that are just, and then like 2 weeks later, we found out that he was leaving the company. It's like, oh, that's why you were making fun of all of this.
That event didn't start till 9.
No,
I don't know why we were there.
There's a cycle roaster guy out there, though. He was killing it. Everybody's getting their
Dude,
coffee.
he had a cool setup on his
He
little
did.
bicycle. It just folded out and became like a big coffee stand on just a random bike. But I was going to reach out to Ken close to the anniversary of that. So maybe that was actually in August.
August sounds right.
Which, damn it, that feels like it was a long time
Feels
ago.
like it was 8 years ago.
I'll reach out at some point, maybe in July, close to the year, and just do a little, hey, man, seems like you're doing well.
Come on, Ken.
But
come say hi.
Well, get a little feisty once a week, call us idiots, and talk about things you're eyeing. He's been on a real tirade against Charles Barkley.
He has, and inside the NBA.
And he's 100% right. He is pro basketball, and you don't have to love the NBA. I've said that too many times to count, but he makes pretty good points. They showed a highlight of LeBron's sick dunk, and Barkley's like, we don't need to play it this many times. It's like everything is just a negative.
Yeah,
Every single thing.
At some point it wears
40.
on you.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Ari, I hate
I know.
LeBron, but on the court, you can inject that right into my freaking veins.
He
It's just,
changed
we need
hands
more of
and
that.
threw it in over the side of his head with left. Like how? I don't even. That's not even possible.
Went on a
Should be.
4-mile run yesterday at like a 9:40 pace. I'm 38. My legs hurt.
I have a man cold again, and I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. That guy's slamming home dunks, and he's older than me.
I
Doesn't
am
make
a
any sense.
foot shorter than LeBron and way more than him. So there you go. That's what I got to deal with. And then I'm like, oh yeah, no,
That's a
there you
good
go,
line,
greatest
Schultz.
athlete in
Not
the world.
bad. Now, by the way, we have one of our P1s from Wisconsin chiming in.
I know. Packer fan probably hates me. And
I've watched every Packer game. Green Bay could be a sneaky good pick, especially at 4.5. They're young. Have lost games with slow starts, penalties, drop passes, turnovers. As a fan, I want to see Love sling it. Just like the Cowboy game last year, there is no pressure to win. He adds the Packers are the second youngest team to make the playoffs, only to ever, I think, only to the Packers from last year. They're young. MLF shouldn't be fired, Mike LaFleur.
No.
You sound like a delusional Wisconsin resident. What's the matter with you?
I do not say. Look, I tried to tee this up before I gave the
I think it's
thought.
more just of why the narrative, and this we do this with coaches and quarterbacks alike.
Why do some narratives exist for certain coaches and
guys?
others don't?
Why is Lamar Jackson a guy who can't get it done in the playoffs, but because one guy wins one game, he doesn't have that same label on him? It's just certain narratives stick to certain guys. Sirianni's going to get it if they lose.
Yes.
And I think your point wasn't that LaFleur should be fired. It's that he will just go in and there won't be a single peep. But if Sirianni, who has been to a Super Bowl, gone to the playoffs again, had another great regular season, his quarterback is coming out of concussion protocol. If they lose, that sound and that alarm will be there in Philly.
That's the other part of this. Again, first of all, yes, Packers should still feel good about the future. I'm just asking, and I'm mainly coming from my fandom. My football coach goes to multiple Super Bowls and 4 or 5 straight NFC title games. And the one year it's down, it's I don't know about the Shanahan guy. And I'm just where does this come from? Yeah. Why do we do that to that guy? But McVay had some crap ass years after that Super Bowl. He might retire. Okay, not that. Oh, not a peep. LaFleur, never been to a Super Bowl. I don't understand how narratives get formed of certain guys. Yeah. Maybe it's LaFleur seems more likable than Shanahan, whatever that may be. You should feel good. I wasn't firing LaFleur if they lose.
Right.
On the other side, though, if the Packers beat the Eagles, which a lot of people think can happen.
I do I'm with Nick on that one. I might sprinkle line on that game. I don't know if they're going to win. Just getting 4.5,
We all have different feels on these games.
Not a big
right?
Hurts guy. You know how I feel about Philly, and I've kind of felt that way all year.
I understand why people don't like Nick Sirianni. I saw it summed up by a Philly fan earlier this year that he comes off as an Eagles fan that won a lottery to be a coach, and now he's letting you know that he's actually a good coach.
There's something to that.
It's annoying, but endearing in some ways. What if they lose, but Hurts looks bad? Is that a Nick Sirianni problem?
No.
So if Hurts comes out and he is rusty, as ESPN showing their picks, and everybody's picking the Eagles, so you know what to do here.
Well, and also let's not act like Hurts has even been great this year, let alone coming off a concussion. He had 18 touchdowns and 5 picks this year.
So, right, 18-5.
He's never had a 4,000-yard passing
is
season.
Year 4 for him?
This is year 5, I believe.
Is it year 5?
Let me check, though.
I get why they'd want to move on from Sirianni. The fan base would obviously scream it if they lost, but how do you blame the coach if Hurts comes out and is 15 for 32,
148 yards,
and a pick, and no touchdown? How do you look at the coach? I'm not saying you shouldn't, but also, how is that Sirianni's fault?
Yeah, it's a very fair argument. This is year 5, by the way, for Jalen Hurts. He had sub 3,000 passing yards this year, 2,900 yards for the season. He did miss the time, obviously, at the end of the season.
Look at how many games A.J. Brown played.
18 touchdowns and 5 picks were his final passing numbers. He has never had a 4,000-yard passing season. He's never had a year throwing more than 23 touchdowns in a year.
And
That's
they
his
gave him
career
$200
high.
million plus, and so yes, Sirianni not amazing, but this is kind of what the money's for.
This is
why I put the Herbert.
Talk
thing
about
out
expectations on quarterbacks. This guy's got a contract. You got to go win and you got to go play. That's just the way we handle NFL quarterbacks, right?
Yes.
Because if Herbert loses on Saturday morning to Houston, he's not going to hear the end of it. But I do feel like if Philly loses, Sirianni will be the scapegoat and he will be the guy that gets fired.
Interesting how
and they're going to change coaches.
Now you're in the narrative business.
Now
with me.
I'm in the narrative,
how does
baby.
this happen?
I know.
Why does this make sense and that one doesn't make sense?
Yeah, it is the way that you feel about Notre Dame tonight, and we'll get to more of that game here in the final hour of the show. That's kind of how I view Philadelphia this year. It is much easier said than done. They are loaded almost everywhere. They're great at the line of scrimmage. I don't doubt the overall talent on the team. There's the aspect to me of if I can find a way to slow down Saquon Barkley, again, easier said than done. The guy's a 2,000-yard rusher and probably should be getting more consideration for an MVP this year. If I could just find a way to bottle him up a little bit, though, and make Philly more one-dimensional, that's why the lack of trust exists in me for Philly. And again, maybe nobody can do that, and Saquon Barkley runs over everybody and they win a Super Bowl because of it. Hell, Jimmy Garoppolo went to a Super Bowl completing 8 passes in an NFC Championship game. It has happened before. Yes. So maybe that's Philadelphia this year. Yeah. But that's where the lack of buy-in in Philly comes from me, and has all year, of just, I don't view Jalen. He's a fine quarterback. He's a good athlete. You can push him on short yardage situations. The guy had 18 touchdowns and 5 picks this year. Like, Caleb Williams almost had better numbers than that. He's not a prolific thrower of the football. They're a little one-dimensional to me offensively.
Smith and Brown both played
the majority of the year, right?
13 games.
13 games. They missed a little bit of time.
They missed a couple games out there, but to have both of those targets for 13 games, how many quarterbacks
have
would
a
you
weapon
say,
tandem like that?
I mean, like, and look, he very well could lose against Houston, so some people will remember this. But, like, what if Justin Herbert had A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith?
And Saquon Barkley rushing for 2,000 yards.
You know, other quarterbacks would do a lot for those weapons.
Not 18 touchdowns, 5 picks. No. Big and fun one, man. I'm with you. We'll have more on the wild card weekend.
I'm curious now. Give me a second here.
Yeah. We'll look something else up.
I want to look up what he fit. Give me, okay, so remember what you thought about this player. All right, at the end of the regular season.
End of the regular season.
Tell me Hurts' numbers again. Yards, touchdowns, picks.
2,900 yards, basically 2,903, 18 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions.
Caleb Williams, 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks.
Yeah, almost identical.
And
had to throw the ball a little bit more because they were losing a lot, and so there's
Didn't
that.
have Saquon Barkley.
Didn't have Saquon Barkley.
But offensive line sucked, and rookie who took bad sacks all year, better numbers than Jalen Hurts, who got, 220, 210, 215, whatever that was?
A lot of cash. A lot of cash going that guy's way. People have an issue with corn pop. Do we agree? I want to get to that coming up next. We'll dive back into the playoff game coming up at the bottom of the hour. Notre Dame and Penn State tonight. Back after this on The Fan.
College football playoff drama.
Snap, fake to Scouting.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
Thought on the YouTube chat from Gus said Hurts does have 14 rushing touchdowns. You can't ignore the rushing production. Season stats for him, 630 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns. I don't know this off the top of my head.
Okay.
How many of those were inside? I mean, and again, I'm not saying that this is like scoring points wins you football games. I understand that.
Sure.
How many of those were inside the 3-yard line? And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure
like
there's a way.
Push touchdowns?
How many of those 14 were tush pushes, and how many of those were like, man, that was a nice 17-yard scramble on 3rd and 7, and you made a play with your legs?
Well, I think, look, it's super valid to bring up rushing totals with players. We do that certainly with Lamar, right?
Yes.
Lamar also throws 41 tuds.
I
I think I look at those weapons, and again, 13 games for Brown and Smith. And they've got good tight end play. You mentioned Barkley can do it at a backfield or catching the football as well. 18 touchdowns that's not great, Bob.
Yeah.
And again, rushing matters. And I'm just comping him to another quarterback that's been paid. By the way, it took him a minute to get the contract, whereas Hurts just was handed
the deal because he went to a Super Bowl.
Lamar has more than doubled your passing touchdowns and just trounced your rushing totals as well. And maybe we shouldn't be holding to a Lamar standard. There are 3 or 4 guys, and then there's kind of a mixed bag, right? But 18 touchdowns. You could be throwing a couple more than that.
You could. So total touchdowns, you're not wrong. He's an impactful. I'm not trying to act and sound like the guy's an absolute bomb. Part of the reason why I became such a Lamar Jackson fan, even more so, was because of the Jalen Hurts narrative that came out the year that they went to the Super Bowl, and it became this Jalen Hurts is this MVP and he belongs in this conversation. When you go back and look at the numbers he put up that year, it's 22 touchdowns and 6 picks. He threw 3,700 yards. He had 13 rushing touchdowns and 760 yards on the ground. That's remarkable. But that same offseason, we had teams tripping over themselves to not trade for Lamar Jackson. Remember that? Atlanta, Carolina, all the teams that were coming out.
the NFC South.
Releasing, no, we will never trade. Okay, how'd that work out for you, Atlanta? How'd that work out for you, New Orleans? How'd that work out for you, Carolina?
Atlanta with Lamar Jackson.
It was laughably dumb. And so it's we have teams, Jalen Hurts is a top 5 guy because he's in a Super Bowl because he plays on an elite roster. And Lamar Jackson's not a franchise. It's just, I don't know. Narratives are one of the reasons I'm a Lamar guy and push back a little bit on the Hurts love.
The story in Philly is Barkley and the defense. I mean, it is point blank. There's no other way to put it. So I went and looked at his. I can't find. I'd have to go through game to see what the touchdown came on.
Yeah.
But here's just one example. 8 carries, 20 yards. It's a 2.5 yard average.
Not great.
1 touchdown.
Okay.
10 carries, 37 rushing yards. That's less than 4 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So I tend to believe that a couple of those tuds were within what we're saying of is that a 3-yard rush? A 2-yard rush? That's
Saquon
fine.
Barkley carry the ball down to the 2-yard line and then they push you in.
I remember watching
You're a touchdown
a few of their
vulture
games
inside the 5.
where that was the case. I go back and try to remember, but I watched a few of their games where Barkley would get it, he'd get to the 1, then he'd get to the half, and then tush push.
It's all right, well,
Hurts
might as well do
touchdown,
this.
You know what I mean? And again,
good for fantasy production, that's for sure, because you're getting a lot of
Absolutely,
rushing touchdowns. Before we get to back to the playoff game, which I do want to get to, because it starts tonight, and we got the semifinals. We're back to where the playoff used to be. We're down to the Final Four.
You feel like there's juice for that game?
I do.
Corn Pop, you like the juice for this game?
A lot of juice tonight, Corn Pop?
We got to stop the Corn Pop thing. Where the hell
don't
did
like
that
the
come
nickname?
from?
What do you
Doesn't
mean?
make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
It does.
It does.
It does.
How?
If it does, if you know what it
Well,
means.
if you know, you know.
Dude, get right to the meat.
No, but how does that relate to the original Corn Pop reference from good old Sleepy Joe?
I honestly
it's
don't
actually
know.
not a Joe Biden thing at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know how it came. Yeah, it has nothing to do with politics. I
That's
can't even
what I've
remember
heard it from.
I
No,
forget
I
what we did 30
We're
minutes
quite literally
ago. so-
calling you the cereal.
Yeah,
Corn Pop.
you're just you're Corn Pop cereal.
Okay. So we're literally going Corn Pop cereal. I mean, I guess there's.
We're not calling you Joe Biden
There's
here.
worse cereals to
You
be
thought we
than
were calling you
Corn
Joe
Pops.
Biden?
You're talking a Joe Biden joke
Thought you
here?
were calling me the old gang leader Corn Pop that he said that I knew a guy back in the day that Corn Pop. I'm like, what the hell does this have to do with anything?
I mean, I
But
think
now
look,
I understand.
Look, we're just trying to separate you from the Starbucks heiress. So we need you to stand out a little bit on your own. Schulte has done it, but I think Corn Pop's
Appreciate
going to take you to another level.
Well, let's hope,
Is
man.
there juice to this game, Corn Pop?
I'd say a little bit.
A little bit.
But
Rank me on juice 1 through 10.
Welch's grape.
6. You go Welch's grape.
This ain't Kool-Aid, man.
Not Kool-Aid.
I mean,
love
just
Welch's grape juice.
just of how it could go.
What's the worst juice? Is it cranberry?
No, cranberry's good. It's got that bite. I think grapefruit's kind of up there.
I'm out on orange juice. Pulp orange juice to me is the worst juice. Like if I'm over,
What about pulp-free orange juice?
it's okay, but I'm not
Orange
reaching.
juice?
I'm
You're
not
out on
reaching.
orange
I'm out
juice?
on orange juice.
How could you be out on orange juice?
I'm out. I don't want anything to do with it.
Really?
Too tangy. I don't want anything to do
Too
with that.
tangy.
Yeah, I don't want
It's
that.
the same. What's the one
Who
with
puts
V8?
chunks in there? V8? Is that what you're?
No. Tang.
Tang. Yeah.
You remember that?
Tang is tangy.
The fake orange juice that astronauts had to
Yeah,
drink?
exactly.
I do. I wanted to ask this
I
question.
love pulp orange juice, by the way.
I know you're a pulp guy because you're healthy. Healthy people love pulp orange juice, and I'm not a healthy guy.
I loved it as a kid.
Nah, you were
I
healthy.
was
You were
always the
skinny.
weird one at the
You were.
sleepovers. Like, you guys don't have pulp in
You
your
guys
orange
want some
juice?
chunk in your orange juice?
No, you psycho.
Like, that's gross.
That's disgusting. I don't want food with my juice, man.
What, does your mom make your orange juice? Yeah, we can't afford it.
Yeah, we squeeze it ourselves. Why does Corn Pop just came into the Vancouver Ford Text, and why does Corn Pop keep saying it's bad news for the Ducks that 2 guys were elected to be eligible for the draft? Shouldn't that be expected, great news, and celebrated? So in your update all day, you've had Connerly and Jordan Birch announcing that they are going yesterday. That came out, not to the surprise of anybody, that they're going to go to the NFL draft, and both are very likely to be first-round picks this year. And they're wondering, why is Corn Pop saying this? Bad news.
Sir, what did I say?
You said the same thing. Like 2 commercial breaks ago, he was like, why does he keep saying it's bad news in his update?
Because I think they expected it. They got that tackle from Nevada.
Yeah.
I know Birch was good, but like when you end on the way they did in Ohio State, I think you're like, man, we can get another guy to not do anything in a football game.
Go find another guy to lose by 40.
And they're going to be 2 debatably first-round picks. That's great news for Dan Lanning and the program.
They got a chance to have 3 first-round picks this year. I think Connerly is definitely going to be a first-round pick, and Birch will as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if Harmon is too.
Yeah, there's absolutely that opportunity.
So you think it's bad news?
Yeah, I just kind of on the basis that they're going to have to replace like 15 senior starters. So then to see another couple of guys on top of Jordan James and Derek Harmon leave, I'm not saying that Oregon can't do it. I'm saying that it's a little bit more of a challenge. So when I say bad news, I don't think Dan Lanning. Now, I understand, like, yes, these college coaches' goal, especially, an incubator like Oregon, we need to turn this talent into NFL ready.
Develop.
Exactly. I don't think any of these guys wake up and are happy. Like, that's not their first reaction when they see, oh, one of my best guys is leaving. I don't think Nick Saban enjoyed having so many 2-and-dones at Alabama, but he knew that's the system that he had to work with. And you can talk about, like, talent stashing or whatever, but the whole thing that Dan Lanning is fighting is, on top of the narrative that he can't get up in big games, is having to refresh everything. Basically, the entire roster, all of your skill positions are gone. And I just don't think that it's good news. Yes, it's great for the program as a whole, but bad news right now, trying to figure out how to transition to next year. Dan Lanning's got a couple of other spots that he needs to fill. Did he plan on that? Possibly, but it's still
this is year 4. This is when the recruiting, this is when
it hits.
Yeah, this is when the guys should be stepping in, and you lose a Connerly, and he's good, and you lose a Birch, and he's good, but 4 5s, and you're getting more 5s than you ever had, and you're top whatever, and this is when the recruiting needs to matter. We got to, I hear you, but also, like, it's a good day for the program. These guys leaving isn't a surprise. I'm going to give you a sneaky candidate here.
Okay.
Apple juice is the worst juice.
Ooh. Yeah, anti-apple juice.
Very anti-apple juice.
That's a fair take. I'm not huge on apple juice.
It's way too sweet. You always want more of a glass, and then when you have it, your stomach hurts. I think apple juice is the worst juice.
That's a fair take. That's valid. I'm not going to push back on that.
I think the pulp orange juice would probably win.
Pulp orange juice is definitely the worst.
But at least you could, I don't know, get through the pulp and still get the orange juice, whereas, like, you can't drink much. You can't get a shot of apple juice, your stomach hurts.
It does immediately.
It's too sweet.
Apple juice used to give me diarrhea when I was a kid, too.
You know why?
Just like immediate
It's
diarrhea.
way too sweet.
Just everywhere, just flowing everywhere.
Schulte, what's your juice pick?
Oh, grape juice.
Grape juice?
Yeah, hands down grape juice. But not any
love
grape
grape
juice. Welch's grape juice. The frozen kind from concentrate. Oh my God!
I always got mad at my mom when she did frozen.
Frozen juice is terrible.
The Welch's is good.
Oh no, Schulte, bad take.
No, the Welch's now
frozen Welch's grape juice.
No, frozen orange juice is terrible. But if you go frozen,
how do you mix it? It just sits there and you wait for it to melt, and then it's just like, ugh.
The idea that people do frozen juice is
cold.
hilarious to me. Instead of just like buying a carton of juice at the store.
Cheaper. It's like literally a third of the cost.
How much? I know, but what are we talking here for a carton of juice? How much are we talking right now?
Like $4
You guys
or $5
want juice? I'll defrost it now for tomorrow.
Yeah,
no,
I want it now. No, can't have it till tomorrow.
You guys are idiots.
You got to put it in the microwave for an hour.
You literally
Put it
pour
on
it into the
defrost.
water and you mix it, and it's done and cold. You guys are dumb.
When I was 11, my mom bought some frozen
Come on,
juice.
Corn Pop.
And I put it in a container. And she goes, put some water in it. I put some water in it. And I started mixing. And it just wasn't melting. And I literally put the spoon in. And I'm like, I'm drinking hose water. Don't buy this again.
That's all I need. Hose
I
water's
quit.
fine.
This is
That's
stupid.
funny. You get some good vitamin C from that.
Look, do you buy frozen vegetables?
I do.
Yeah, there's a couple of bags of frozen veggies in my freezer.
Yeah, I do them occasionally because we have a problem in our household where we waste a lot of food.
Oh, really?
And I'm not happy about it. That's one of my New Year's resolutions is to be less wasteful.
I'm a grocery store just about every day guy because of vegetables.
See,
I'll
and
run and get broccoli and go home.
Yeah, this is why I want to live in a neighborhood where I could walk to a grocery store and just be like, hey, I'm going to go get dinner. And then I'm not like loading up on things and being like, oh, that's right. I forgot there's a bag of salad in there that's been sitting there for 2 weeks and I forgot that I bought it.
That's why I want to live in Italy at some point in my life.
There you go.
Market every day.
Get some good breads. I see the point on the bad news front from Schulte. Like, I get it. Like, when you lose guys at that level. I think the reason where I would push back a couple areas. One, not bad news for me because I would have been shocked if any of those guys came back. Like, I had already baked into my thought process for next year's team.
That's fair.
Connerly's not coming back. He's going to be a first-round pick as a tackle. What does that pay? A lot of money. He might be a top 15 pick in the draft. There was a mock that came out yesterday that had him going 10th, and they had him, I think it was our guy Miller at ESPN, had him the number 1 tackle drafted. Like 10th overall. So
really? Because yesterday I thought he had Banks.
No, there was one that came out of mock draft. Now, these are mocks, right? Who the hell knows how it's all going to turn out in April? But there are mocks that have him going that high. Birch is the same way. Like, he's been there. He got banged up this year. Like, I would have been shocked if he came back for another year. I think those are all really cool feathers in the cap of Lanning and recruiting that he could sell. Connerly was one of the first recruits that he brought in. Him and Jordan James was a part of that class that he put together.
Washington kid. That
came
was
from
huge.
Georgia. He stole him out of the state of Washington.
Yep.
He's going to be a first-round pick as an offensive lineman. Offensive line has been one of the bigger struggle areas for Lanning in terms of high school recruiting. And so to have that guy say, look, we brought him in, we developed him, first-round pick. When Birch came in, he was a highly thought-of guy, but I don't think anybody really viewed him as a first-round draft pick. Now he has a chance to be that. And Derek Harmon, similarly, at Michigan State was a very good player, but I don't remember off the top of my head him having first-round grades last year when he was in East Lansing.
I feel like people did talk about him
maybe
a
they
little bit
did.
as like that prospect that could really
if he pops
again,
or he has a good year and then all of a sudden
he was good at Michigan State.
He was very good at Michigan State, but I think those are great stories for them to use on the recruiting trail. And to Sprague's point, like, this is why I'm just not doomsday. Oregon has spent 4 years being ready for this moment. Like, they have built up to get ready for this. The way they've recruited the defensive line, you could say, the skill position guys are gone. Evan Stewart's back for another year, which was big. They have recruited incredibly well at wide receiver the last 2 years. Jeremiah McClellan, DeCorian Moore are ready to have breakout seasons for them. Similarly at running back. So I think this is where you get to a point, and this is why we focus so much on recruiting year in and year out. It's a big deal because when you're plugging holes of guys leaving in the first round of the NFL draft, what does Georgia do? What does Alabama do? What does Ohio State do? They say, hey, we lost 3 guys in the first round of the NFL draft. Guess what? Here's a 5-star prospect and a 4-star prospect that are filling their shoes, and guess who's going to be a first-round pick in 2 years? If you want to be one of those kind of programs, that's what you need to do, and I think Oregon's ready to do that.
Not to derail too much, but it is in the realm of your team. There is a shocking statement and accusation that On3 put out about 8 minutes ago.
Oh.
I don't know if you saw this.
No.
Boise State's outgoing OC, Dirk Cutter, went on a radio show, and he's claiming that Oregon tampered. I know for a fact last week after the Fiesta Bowl, one of the key starters on our defense got a call from the Oregon Ducks offering him $700K.
$700K, baby.
And
Who was it? Was he good? We didn't get him. Was that not enough of an offer?
Oh, maybe he hasn't signed the deal yet.
Are
they the first team to be named? Because we hear coach, like Mora did this in his bowl game.
Mora named Washington State as a cheater.
Did he name Washington State?
He literally named Washington State. He said the second we won our bowl game, Washington State coaches were calling guys on our roster.
You don't hear programs get named very often. Usually it's like a threat against the team without naming the team.
Yeah, bring it on, Dirk Cutter. You still pissed off after all those L's you toted over the years? Come on, man. Tampering happens. I don't think anything's going to come from this, but that is an interesting allegation. He's, by the way, retiring. He's stepping away from coaching.
Why don't you stop cheating?
We will not stop cheating.
You ain't cheating.
I wish we cheated more. I wish we had Connor Stallions on our sideline. Maybe we could beat Ohio State again.
Where's Shane Gillis? Get him up here.
Get his ass out there. Let's get back into the playoff game tonight. We got Notre Dame and Penn State. Where is your 1 through 10 juice meter for this game? What is the worst juice? Dive back into that matchup next. First, your Schulte with SportsCenter.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by 808 Hawaiian Restaurant. Mixed plates like Grandma used to make. If your grandma were from the Big Island, Woodstock, Burnside, Beaverton, or online at ate-oh-ate.com. First on the Fan, your Blazers smacking the Pelicans for their 13th win of the season, 119-100 last night. Denny Avdia leading the way with 26 points, Shaedon Sharpe adding 21. They're right back at it for the second of a back-to-back in Dallas against the Mavericks tonight. Tip-off for that one set for 5:30 p.m. Oregon football losing a couple of players as both edge rusher, Jordan Birch, and left offensive tackle Josh Connerly strike that reverse and declaring for the NFL draft. The college football semis getting going tonight with the Orange Bowl between Penn State and Notre Dame set for a 4:30 kick on ESPN. The Fighting Irish are a 1.5-point favorite in that one. On the college hardwood, the 15th-ranked Oregon Ducks taking on Ohio State in Columbus. The Buckeyes a 3.5-point favorite. Coverage getting going at 2:30 right here on the Fan. Tip-off is at 3 on the Big Ten Network. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan Merch Locker has a new long-sleeve tee and hoodies in your favorite college colors. Get yours now at 1080thefan.com.
Ow! Sweetie, come here. Don't worry. I see a lot of
all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
Grinding all my life, yeah. Sacrifice.
Fun juice conversation. My team's cheating. I wish they would cheat more. Whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes. How about the random story yesterday that came out that Matt Campbell could be interviewing for the Chicago Bears job?
I thought he was interviewing for the Bears.
Oh, he is. Not potentially. He is interviewing for the Bears job.
Pete Carroll as well.
Pete Carroll, yeah.
Why do you kind of have that reaction? But like and I'm not saying he doesn't have more rings, but like Belichick, yeah. Pete Carroll, no.
If I were the Bears,
one was better than the other the last 2 years of their careers.
Yeah, if I were the Bears, I wouldn't want to hire Belichick either. I don't know. I mean, I do think the career matters for something in terms of overall success. Last 2 years, sure. I mean, things didn't end well in New England. They also didn't pick up well.
Sure.
You're starting anew with a second-year quarterback, and either of them being interviewed by the Bears would be ridiculous to me. How long is Pete Carroll going to coach for?
I don't know. But the age,
he's going to be 74 when the season kicks off next year. Is he coaching until he's 80?
That's
you want an 80-year-old head coach?
That's something he's finding a coordinator that's Joe Brady-esque, a 33-year-old that's
starting over again.
Going to learn for 2 years and hopefully bring.
Are you going to hold on to that guy? Is he going to leave for another job? Is he going to be a coach in waiting? How long?
I think
is
that's
Pete
what it would be. It's coach in waiting with learning from how to build culture. With honestly, you cannot like him all you want. Pete Carroll is one of the greatest culture builders ever.
Without a doubt, he's a great culture builder. I look at that spot as a desperate need to hire a coach who fits with your number one quarterback, a guy that you have never had in the history of the Bears organization, who had an up-and-down rookie season. It wasn't as bad as some people thought it maybe or argued throughout the course of the year that it was. His numbers were okay and decent at the end of the season. Didn't have a lot of help. Offensive line was terrible. I'm not the biggest Caleb guy, but I'm not throwing him out quite yet. You got to get this hire right. And hiring a 74-year-old culture builder where you're going to have to cycle through offensive coordinators. His last offensive coordinator hire was who in Seattle?
Shane Waldron.
Yeah. How did that work out in Chicago this year?
About the same as Seattle did this year.
We trust Pete Carroll to go hire the right offensive coordinator? I mean, none of that makes any sense to me. And I don't know how Matt Campbell would be as a head coach in the NFL, but I'd rather have Matt Campbell than Pete Carroll at this point.
Well, look, we'll get to the other game that's going to happen tomorrow because that's got more juice, I think, than tonight's. Though we're all going to watch tonight. I'm not trying to say we're not going to watch. I
think people have a hard time seeing Notre Dame or Penn State winning a national championship, and that's why it has more juice.
You better kind of talk yourself into it because it's very possible that happens.
Yeah.
What is Steve Sarkisian? Because he's been rumored to be one of the candidates NFL teams really want to go after.
Mm-hmm.
And I get both sides of it. I get why you wouldn't want to stay in college. It seems like a nightmare to have to deal with this. I mean, when you got an OC at a random school like Boise saying, hey, we got Oregon calling our guys when they shouldn't be, that's happening everywhere all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And your own roster might stay or leave.
It's happening to your own roster, too.
Also, it's very hard to go from college and be good in the NFL as well. I'm monitoring and curious what's going to happen with Steve Sarkisian, if he's really going to give that any noise, or if he just comes right out and says if they win tomorrow or even if they lose and he says, no, I'm at Texas, we're building it, it's great, I'm happy. Maybe he already has and I missed that statement, but the report like a couple days ago that said he is somebody that the NFL is really looking at.
Seriously consider. I think a lot of them have to take the same approach that Harbaugh did. Now, Harbaugh was going to get the boot from the NCAA because of all the stuff they did the last couple of years at Michigan, both the Connor Stallion stuff and the recruiting violations that transpired there. But he was smart in terms of the job selection that he had because he knew the most important thing in the NFL is what? You have to have a quarterback if you want to win. And that's what makes the Bears' job interesting. Where are you at on Caleb Williams, and do you believe that he can be a top 5, top 10 NFL quarterback? Because if you do, I think you're willing to overlook all the dysfunction behind the scenes and the lack of leadership from the the owners and all that. You're willing to overlook all that because the one constant in the NFL is that if you have a franchise quarterback, you have a chance to succeed. If you don't, you have no chance to succeed long term. Mike Vrabel got fired last year in Tennessee. What couldn't he find? A franchise quarterback. That was the reason that they could never get over the hump. So if I'm Steve Sarkisian, I understand the desire. If Chicago called, it all comes down to my question of what do I think of Caleb Williams and do I view him as a franchise quarterback?
What if Tennessee called?
I don't think I would take that job. Unless there's a guy in this draft that you view as a true number one, like that guy's going to be legitimate. Maybe he feels that way about Cam Ward. Maybe he's going to draft Quinn Ewers number one overall, and that would be his selection.
That would not sit well.
Not sit well in Tennessee, without a doubt. We get the playoffs continuing tonight. You have it at a 7. Schulte rated at a 6.5 on the juice meter. I think I'm going to give you an 8. I'm going to go 8 on the juice meter tonight because of the brands of the two teams that are playing in the game between Notre Dame and Penn State. Brands matter, and it's a reality in every sport. College football is no different. We haven't seen Notre Dame in a national championship game since, what year was that, 2012 when they got smoked by?
Yeah.
Penn State has never played in a national championship game. I know they've won quote-unquote national championships, but they've never played in an actual national championship game, which didn't begin in college football until 1998. So they got a chance to do something for a first time as a program, first time for Notre Dame since 2012, so over a decade since they've been 2-1. And because of those reasons, I'm excited. I'm leaning Notre Dame tonight, but I'm just hoping it's going to be a good game that lives up to the hype because we've had a few blowouts so far in the playoffs.
I cannot be alone in this opinion that if Penn State wins, are we not going to turn that TV off and feel weird? I
certainly will because of my fandom.
Well, yeah, because of your fandom, but I kind of just think fandom be damned. Unless you're a Penn State grad, alum, super fan, whatever. We didn't watch college football and have the opinion that they're one of the top 4, 2, or 3 best teams, did we?
No,
I know they were largely in the rankings in the top 4, but they were beating nobodies, and then they lost to everybody.
Yeah, the 2 best teams they played in the regular season both beat them. Ohio State in their own building and Oregon in the Big Ten championship.
It's just going to be a real weird feeling.
It'll be a very weird feeling. And similarly to Notre Dame, who didn't have the most difficult schedule this year. Now, they did have to get through Georgia in New Orleans.
But they didn't have to play a conference title game.
They did not have to play a conference title game. And Georgia, look, we can feel however we want about Carson Beck and his desire to throw interceptions this year. They got to play a backup quarterback at Georgia, and that did end up having an impact on the game.
There is no scenario, by the way, the early look ahead here from Oddshark, there's no scenario for either one of these teams to be a favorite in the title game.
No chance at all. Texas or Ohio State will be the favorite.
Texas or Ohio State will be the favorite no matter who wins this game or who wins that game.
I wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State, what was the look-ahead line for the Penn State game?
Penn State, Ohio State is 7.5. Ohio State, Notre Dame is 7.5.
7.5. So they're more than a touchdown favorite in the title game.
Texas is only 2.5-point favorites against either one of these teams.
And that sounds valid. Texas has their issues offensively. That'll probably be the bigger semifinal game, but the semifinals kick off tonight down in Miami. Final thoughts on that game. We'll answer some poll questions, wrap it up on a Thursday next on The Fan.
It's time for To the House, the scoring plays that make football special. Brought to you by Smartline Home Design. Online at smartlinehomedesign.com.
Wallace very aggressive on Garland, who's holding it. Garland pulls back, 7 on the 24. Garland the drive, it's up, it's good! Timeout, OKC, it's a 7-point lead.
Bang! Mike Brain, he always takes it to the house with his calls, and that was Darius Garland. Big win for the Cavs last night, best record in the NBA, and they beat Oklahoma City.
32-4, and a lot of people asking, do they have a chance to win the NBA championship? I think there should be a little bit of leeway given to them. They may not beat the Celtics or win the East, but Evan Mobley's taken a big step. Jared Allen was a problem against Oklahoma City last night, and then you've got Garland and Mitchell on the perimeter. Makes it really tough.
To the House, brought to you by Smartline Home Design, a trusted local architectural design studio ready to bring your dream home to life. Visit smartlinehomedesign.com.
Builders, Smartline Home Design is here to boost your business.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
It upset my nerves.
All right, let's get to the poll questions from earlier in the show.
Yeah, one of those is...
And from yesterday.
I worded one of those very incorrectly based on what I did.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah. Corn Pop. He got me with the juice take on Frozen. He's a Frozen juice guy.
Corn Pop will do that to you, man. You got to have your head on a swivel.
I tell you what, Corn Pop, you love to throw a good party. If you ever have a party and your punch is a frozen fruit punch,
That'll never happen.
Well, why?
Geez.
You're pro frozen juice.
We go all out for parties, and if I'm doing like a jungle juice or a margarita, we're making that from
Jungle juice. You guys do jungle juice? I haven't had jungle juice in a long time.
Is it in your bathtub?
You go bathtub jungle juice?
No, we have a nice little dispenser that just has a spout at the end of it.
Aren't you
Make it in there.
fancy? I got a big bowl, a
There you
punch
go.
bowl.
Exactly. I'm
Does
not.
anybody spike it?
Why don't you give yourself the
I
best
do.
stuff, though?
Yeah.
No, if you're admitting fruit, frozen juice is not the best stuff. You
For
do
parties, but you'll do it for you?
Yeah, why would you not do it for
I
yourself?
mean, it's kind of a space thing too, because like we don't have much of a pantry, and then our other smaller fridge downstairs won't hold like the big old gallons of juice. So like buying 3 or 4 of the frozen ones, like just the concentrate. Well, if I want some grape juice, I can make a pitcher of it, and we don't have that space being taken up. So there's multiple reasons behind this.
Pro frozen juice guy.
Just grape juice. No, I'm not pro frozen juice. Just
grape.
the Welch's
That's
grape.
it.
That
No
is
other
it.
frozen juice is good. That's
no
all
other
that's
frozen
good.
juice. Just the grape for me.
Well, you'll catch the air on this one. What is the worst juice of these three? Orange juice with pulp, apple juice, grape, or frozen juice.
So that's 4
That
options.
is 4 options, but hey, it happens to the best of us. Right now, orange juice with pulp is leading, 33.8%. Second place, grape, 29.6%.
Wow.
Then it's frozen juice at 26.8%. Apple juice in dead last
Crazy.
at 9%.
Look, I get pulp not popular. It gets stuck in your teeth. Kind of weird to drink juice with chunks in it. Apple juice, good luck drinking more than half of a cup. Your stomach's going to hurt. It's way too sweet. All of you are liars. You don't drink apple juice. You drink the other juices, potentially. Maybe not the pulp, but you don't drink apple juice.
Now, are you an apple cider guy? For a
I know
small
there's a
window
difference,
of the
but
year.
What's the difference?
I mean, I'm a Martinelli's guy.
You're Martinelli's
So
guy?
like a little sparkling, yes.
A little sparkling apple cider around Thanksgiving
That's like
or the
one
holidays.
glass.
Or
I'm an apple guy.
You're an apple
I
guy.
eat an
Eat
apple.
an
I
apple.
don't drink an apple. I eat an apple. I don't mess with ciders and juices like of that nature, so no.
Is there something about the Cleveland Cavaliers that you don't trust to be a legit title contender? 80% of you are saying yes.
Most of that is Donovan Mitchell based.
20% are saying no. Yeah, I just think it's hard.
32-4.
I know.
They played 36 games and lost 4 times.
It's a remarkable run. It is, and they're going to have I mean, they should be. Is there anybody sniffing them in the
Boston can still catch them theoretically
for the 1 seed in the East?
Yeah,
they're 5.5 back, so they got a 5.5 game
It's
lead.
not over yet.
Outside of that, New York, Orlando, Milwaukee, like none of those teams are going to catch
Not
them.
unless injuries happen.
So they're almost basically locked into a top 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. I just think it's a regular season NBA thing where we've seen teams have runs like this that then don't make it all the way, that are like the little engine that could kind of coming. Like Cleveland was a top 4 seed in the East last year.
Yeah, they
this
lost
is
to the Knicks.
such a different level to take it to be all of a sudden 32-4 that I think it's just people have a hard time seeing teams without multiple bona fide stars winning NBA championships.
Yeah, somebody had said earlier like they don't have a superstar. I would disagree with that. In terms, I guess how you define superstar.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's a hell of a player.
I mean, everybody knows his name.
Yes, he's been a really good guy for a long time.
He's got good production. He may not be the top superstar by any stretch.
Yeah, he's not a top 10 guy in the NBA. Nobody would argue that.
I think they're a pretty complete team. I think the coach is really good. I think Mobley's taken some real steps. Him and Jared Allen last night were phenomenal defensively. What you're doing is what a lot of people are doing, and I don't blame you for it. It's you see Mitchell, and you think of Jazz teams that were great that couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example in the East that happened years ago that I certainly put in this category. The Atlanta Hawks. Remember those 4 guys that made the All-Star game, and LeBron said, sweeping your ass out of the playoffs.
Number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Couldn't beat one player.
Is that Budenholzer was their coach? Who was their guy?
Budenholzer, yeah. They had the 4 dudes, made the playoff with Teague and Horford and Millsap.
Kyle Korver on that team, I feel like, yeah.
And LeBron James with his Cavs team, sweep them out.
See you later.
Yeah.
I'm better than all of you.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
I just think it's fun to have like 6 to 7 teams. Hell, even Denver, who maybe you don't buy them. I know they won last night against the Clippers. Westbrook weirdly has been awesome for them. Jokic is putting up all-time numbers. They may not have a real shot here because these other West teams are really good, but you're going to give Jokic a puncher's chance.
Absolutely.
You've got 6 to 7 teams here in the thick of this race, and that's good stuff for the league.
Hell, I'd make the same argument in the East about Milwaukee. I know people have their feelings about Dame and Middleton's now on the bench. If Giannis is healthy in the postseason, I'm giving him a puncher's chance
Dame
in
and
any series that they play in because he
Sure.
just can take over and handle it on his own.
That's the IST champion.
That is the IST champion, the Milwaukee Bucks, the IST champion. If you and 2 other friends got together, do you think you could successfully do the 3-man weave on the first try?
I should have added. Oh yeah, see, I don't think I added on the first try.
Okay.
Or if I did, I didn't add no warm up.
No, yeah, you didn't add no warm up.
I give you 3. You and
jump
2
on
other
the
friends.
floor. Here we go.
Here's the ball. Do the 3-man weave. Go.
52.4% of you say without a doubt we could do it correctly.
Somebody's going to screw up one of the cross
Thank
throughs.
you. Thank
Somebody's
you.
Do
gonna
you know
screw
the
it up.
proper etiquette of a 3-man weave, Schulte?
I mean, I think so, but I haven't done one in like a decade. So it's like
That's
once I
kind of
step
one
on
of
the
the
court, I'm
whole
like,
Where does
well,
the ball start? Where's the first pass go?
The ball starts in the corner, right? See, I'm already screwing it up.
I don't even know.
I don't think it matters where the
Middle,
ball
right, left,
starts.
pass go under, rotate under. There you go.
Yeah, I don't think the ball's starting anywhere particularly.
Is there not a set starting ball spot in the
'cause you
3-man
can-
weave?
you
I
can
don't know.
throw
I'm
the
asking
ball-
questions.
This is why people are liars.
This is why I'm saying
People
I
are
don't.
liars.
52% of you would get it wrong. I don't know the
I
answers
would.
to these questions.
I would screw it up.
Is there a spot where it's supposed to start? Does it matter where it starts?
We've never run it in a game.
So I think
It's
the middle
most
guy is
useless drill you can ever do in basketball.
It's so true. No, I think the
It's
middle
a
guy
warm up to
passes
get your
it
legs going. That's
Yeah.
all that is.
to one of the side guys, and then the middle guy goes behind the guy he passes
And
it
he
to.
passes around,
yeah,
they
but
go
then
around,
the guy that passes it would just screw it up and go behind the guy he didn't pass it
It's
to. and
middle,
like,
right,
no!
left, under.
If the Jacksonville Jaguars were a cereal, would they be Kicks? 58% of you say
Somebody
yes.
said Kix was sweet yesterday, and I just want to ask you.
What's wrong with you?
No, it's got like
In your house growing up, Kix Sweet tells me that you didn't have a lot of sweet cereals.
your parents
Yes.
suck.
I mean, we shouldn't have been eating the cereals we ate,
Yeah.
but if Kix was sweet, you probably didn't have a whole lot of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Fruity Pebbles.
It had like a hint, a tiny hint, but not. It's like you can't.
No,
taste
if
that.
I had to add sugar to it, you didn't have a hint.
No, I
That's
could
my-
taste
that
it, but
was
I
my
still
standard.
added
You got to add
to
sugar
it.
to it for sure.
Yeah.
Frosted Kix, that might have been a good idea.
Kid tested, mother approved, right?
A couple of thoughts here at the Vancouver Ford text line. Somebody said, honestly, since Oregon lost, I'll probably only hate watch the CFP games if Ohio State is playing. Couldn't care less about Penn State and
totally
Notre
get it.
Dame. Neither feel like they're one of the 2 best teams in the country. Another one, before the game starts tonight, do we know if any Notre Dame players have any fake girlfriends out there? I don't believe we have any fake girlfriends
Kakua.
going into the game.
You know, I watched.
Weirdest thing ever when that dude showed how he did the voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Let me go behind this wall.
I watched that Netflix documentary on it, Untold or whatever.
God, it freaked me out.
That was just you felt bad for Manti, but at the same time, you're just like, dude,
Don't have an online girlfriend.
Middle, left, right, under.
Middle,
Middle,
left,
left,
right.
or right.
Or
Doesn't
right.
matter.
Middle,
Pick a
left,
side.
right, under.
Under.
Under. You got to go under.
Rotate.
Under the screen. You got to
Get
go
the layup.
under the screen.
The funny thing was doing the 3-man weave and having somebody that didn't want to shoot the layup.
Yeah.
So he passed last second, like, no, dude, come on.
No, that was
Put
you.
it up.
I'll put an
That
alley-oop
angle.
up for you. Who do we like tonight? I'm on Notre Dame. You on Notre Dame? Yeah.
Yeah.
Corn Pop, Notre Dame?
No, I hate it. I'm on Penn State. I
Yeah,
don't
Penn
want
State
them to win,
tonight?
but I think Penn
Yeah.
State. I think Drew Aller's going to be too much for Notre Dame.
Very well could be, man. Very well could. Playoffs continue tonight. We'll see what kind of game we get. That will do it for us, folks. If you missed any of the show, go check the podcast, 1080thefan.com, at Turton Sprague and at 1080thefan on Twitter. Thanks, everybody, for watching on YouTube. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. And we will talk to you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Calling us next. Listening to 1080 The Fan.